pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Vaughn.
Here.
Kurtz.
Here.
Hayward.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Sharp.
Here.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Sharp.
Second.
Second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next is our public comments. This is a time set aside for visitors and public comments only on topics of city business other than those listed on tonight's agenda. Please understand the council cannot take any action on your comments at this meeting due to requirements of the Open Meetings Law, but may do so in a future meeting. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to state their comments, and we thank you for your cooperation. The only name I have on here is an Aaron Davis. Is that correct?
Yes, no,
If you want to come forward, state your name and your address, please.
Got Aaron Davis coming up too.
sorry about that.
Do we have two Aaron Davis?
Chances of that.
Oh,
Aaron
sorry. I need Aaron Davis.
One to put on the request. Aaron Davis, 103 Fifth Avenue Southwest.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make the request that we reconsider some of the ways that we do snow removal on First Avenue here, First Street, sorry. Do you guys have a projector? That I can project these on?
Oh, no, I do
Okay.
not.
I did make some copies. Can I pass these out?
Sure.
So if you see, that's the more zoomed in version. So, as you can see, my house is on the south side of the road in the middle, and this is, I'm obviously the one speaking, but this is for all of the lots and everything that go along the south side there. What ends up happening here is we plow the middle lane, the turn lane, and the south lane into the south side properties, which, as you can see here, my easement there between the sidewalk and the road is very small, so all of that goes right onto that sidewalk as well as into the front of the driveway. So I also have some images here zoomed out. This is just my drive, but all the businesses along there are getting 2 lanes worth of snow. I think that puts a little bit of an undue hardship on them, especially with this last year that we had a extreme amount of snow. But just in general, we do get dumped on a lot more. So what I'm requesting is, like they have down at First Street down on Main, where it gets pushed into the center lane and then hauled away. So I can show you these other photos. Here's more zoomed out. As you can see, there's a lot of driveways, especially with the wide drive, which they're taking a lot more than, say, a typical residential lot would take.
Whereabouts is your home? Between Fifth and Sam. Next to Sam?
And if there's somebody else I need to be talking to, then I'm open to suggestions on that. I just wanted to bring this before you guys.
Which committee? Public Works?
I think I saw you up to about your neck in snow this winter.
It was pretty extreme this week. And like I said, you do get all of that. And then if you have a wide, short driveway like I do in a lot of these other businesses, you just don't really have any place to put it. I mean, the other option is to go every other on that, but then you start putting the hardship on the people to the north, and then you get drifting as the wind blows from the northwest.
At least on the north side, they have a little more space to accept part of the snow.
Yeah, in this situation, as you can see to the east of my lot, that's the Sage's Garden. I mean, they got a ton of snow this year dumped into theirs, and they just don't have anywhere to put it as well. There's the gas station to the west, and then several other businesses in town.
We will turn this over to our Public Works Committee and the Street Department and such, and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay, next on the agenda.
Mayor? The Doans would like to.
We also want
No,
to
you,
have comments.
can I say something? Is it about the First Street Trail? Wait,
That's on the
It's on the
agenda.
agenda for the hearing?
If it's an item on the agenda, you'll be able to speak during that time when that agenda comes up, that item comes up. If there's anybody else, though, that didn't get the chance to sign in, that's not something on the agenda, let me know. His item is not something that was on the agenda, so that's why. Sorry for the confusion of the names. So, next on the agenda. Next on the agenda is a proclamation of Municipal Clerks Week, May 5th through the 11th. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through the participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and their annual meetings of their state and provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk, now therefore I, Bonita Davis, Mayor of Independence, do recognize the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2019 as the Municipal Clerk Week, the Independence, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Gina Lynch, and the clerk's office staff, to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. I'll sign that for you before the night's up. Okay? Thank you. Next on the agenda is to accept and approve the consent agenda. Motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that approves the following: the minutes of the April 8th, 2019 regular meeting, and the fire department financials for the month of March. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
I hear harmony. Motion by Kurt, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next is, I need a motion to approve the claims for payment.
So moved.
Motion by Hill.
Second.
O'Laughlin, is that who I heard? Okay. Motion by Hill, second by O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. We're down to petitions from the public. We have a special event application by Mr. Hawken. Do you want to come forward and speak on this?
Rob Hawken, 1616 Parktown Place, Cedar Rapids. I'm asking to grant another event in Teachers Park, August 2nd through 4th, with permits and liquor license.
Can I have you talk up just a little bit so I can hear you a little
Want to
better?
repeat that one more time?
No, I got you so far.
Okay. I'm just asking for another permit to grant another event. This year I'm calling it Iowa Fest for another annual event, August 2nd through the 4th.
Okay. Is there any questions or anything from anybody?
What was the hours on that again?
The event would be 5. I actually want an extension for time to go to midnight in the park.
When'd you go last year?
Midnight. We had to have everybody out by midnight.
Yeah, I think we had 11 o'clock as an ending time last year. I think it was 11 or midnight by the time they were out, but the event is done at 11. Normally it's done at 10, and if I'm not mistaken, we allowed that extra period in there. Mr. Hawken and I did meet last week, and there are some provisions to this. There is a an agreement for a $5,000 cash bond in advance, and Mr. Hawken obviously is responsible for his own liquor license, and proof of insurance listing the city as an additional insured, which would be standard for any event down
I think, wasn't there last year a problem of not enough restrooms for the size of crowd you had?
Yeah, we went over this last time I was here.
Okay.
We're gonna get some additional
Okay.
provisions on porta potties, and Al and I went through that. That's what part of the bond is for the porta potties and stuff.
there. If there are areas that we are deficient, we would dip into this bond to cover those expenses if we have to. We did agree that there has to be more porta potties out there for the size of crowd, depending on what's anticipated. But again, the bond is not for the porta potty specifically. It is to cover those additional costs or costs incurred by the city to make sure that we're meeting those standards that we expect for the event.
Because otherwise he actually pays for the porta potties.
Correct.
Okay.
And this would also cover, for example, last year, the city staff did put up the fencing. Part of the cost of that, we charge actual costs for our labor and what have you for putting those up. For any for-profit event, we do not charge the celebration committee because that's part of our donation to the celebration event on the 4th of July, but otherwise that would be the cost that's charged to Mr. Hawken and his event.
How's the
Security
cleanup?
gonna be handled?
Security is Mr. Hawkins' responsibility. That does fall on him. Cleanup,
I did that last year as well. We cleaned everything up all night, all day too as well. It was pretty clean.
So the concerts would actually be on the 2nd and the 3rd?
Correct.
Have you identified what the entertainment's going to be yet?
Not yet.
So last year was just a one-night event.
Last year,
But-
moved applications for both nights, just like this one, but being you only consider one person to come, it was only for one night, so we still was approved for both days, but since I was able to get one, I said last year.
So if you do it 2 days, it'll be two different groups coming?
Correct.
Or, okay. Are there any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Do you want to state what your actual motion is, or, so, for her records? Is just to approve the,
The event for the 2-day,
okay,
under the contingency of Al and Mr. Hawken had talked about
okay,
with all the conditions that we spoke with tonight, and all the, the figures and everything in here, going on with Al had spoken, so that, upon that, that's my motion.
great, thank you. Got all that?
Yep.
Okay. Did I hear a second? Bill? Okay, sorry. All those in favor, or no, you need a roll call on this one, sorry.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks, you guys.
Next is the special event application for Dash of Hope.
Hi there, I'm
Hi.
Brian White from White Funeral Home. My wife Jackie and I, we have been directors of the Dash of Hope 5K for the last 7 to 8 years. And so far over the course of that time, we've raised a little over $16,000. And so all that money goes to the American Cancer Society, their Relay for Life event. Any consideration, we certainly appreciate your support.
Is there anything different from your previous years as far as the location or routes? or-
Logistically, everything is the same.
Okay.
We have flood alternatives have been the same, and everything is relatively the same. Only difference is this year is a free will donation, as opposed to having a registration fee. We've had a pretty strong showing the last few years, and so we just want to do a little experiment and see how a free will donation will amend things a little bit. But other than that, logistically, for your purposes, everything's the same.
I'd make a motion, we approve the request.
I second it.
Motion by Kurt, second by Scharf. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
I did receive the certificate of insurance for this as well.
Okay.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Shar,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
Okay, hearings and ordinances. Next, I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing for the fiscal year 2019 budget amendment public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by O'Loughlin, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. And I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Scharf, second by Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing. If there's anyone that is wanting to come and speak in regards to the budget amendment, now is your time that you could come forward. That's not what you're here for, okay? Did we have anything sent or, okay.
I was unable to open this, so I just went back to the last preview or draft that you had. Are there any changes since then?
No, everything is the same since we set the hearing date.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what is
It's
going on.
Excel, so that might be part of the issue.
Could be.
Okay, and no other comments from council? Then I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Hearing is closed. Do we need to do anything further on that for any motion?
No, we'll have to approve it at a separate meeting that we hold that public hearing.
Okay, sounds good.
Have we had the appropriate numbers of publications?
Yeah.
Okay, next is public hearing on proposed resolution of necessity for the 2019 street improvement project. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Kurtz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Then I will need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Kurtz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Then we now are in public hearing in regards to the resolution of necessity for the 2019 street improvement projects. Is there anybody out there that is here to discuss that topic? Well, yeah, come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is January Rowland. I live at 501 10th Street Southwest.
Okay.
I guess I understand why you're redoing the streets. I live on a very small dead end, and according to my paper, you're gonna put a sidewalk on it. We already have really small front yards, and you're gonna put a sidewalk. Am I understanding that right?
No.
No. The-
I'm reading the word sidewalk.
The special assessment is required, the language that we have to use are all of those things that are being done with this project. There is a portion of this project, not on your street, that does involve,
Like if I already had a sidewalk, I get it, you fix
yeah,
it.
no, there's a place where a sidewalk will be impacted as part of this project, so we have to put it back. By law, we're required to put all of those things in there that might be touched on. And so I apologize for the confusion, but
This is my first home in Independence, so I'm not familiar. And then my next question was, when does this happen? Do you usually give more notice? Like, I've got to come up with X in a month, 2 months, 6 months?
This is we're establishing the highest dollar amount you could possibly be assessed. The way we're doing it, it's pretty accurate because we're not assessing the full cost of the construction. But we provide you notice so you have the maximum assessment. When we do the bidding, let the bids for this, we find out what the construction costs are. Then we firm up our numbers. You'll have a notice at the end of the project as to what that number actually is. When we finish the project, you'll have 30 days from that time to pay the assessment. If you do not pay it, then it is put on a special assessment on your taxes. Generally, we've gone 10 years at a set interest rate on your taxes for that assessment. So it's not paid all up front. It is, you have the option of doing that. If you choose not to and you want it to go on your taxes, the council sets the duration and the interest rate. And again, generally 10%. And we haven't talked interest rates, so I won't go down that road.
You mean 10 years out?
10 years, I'm sorry, 10%. Yeah.
No,
10
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Duration on the assessment. So it would be split out over that 10 years.
Okay. And then do you know when they will do, when this, is this next year's project, this summer?
This summer.
2019
This summer.
road project.
I have a spouse that works second shift and sleeps half the day.
The construction.
I'm not saying there's anything you can do about that, but what typically happens?
Generally, work is from 7 a.m. until 5 or 6, sometimes as late as 7, depending on the project.
And because we live on a dead-end road, where do we go? How do we get home? When you start tearing my road up, how do I get home? If I had 2 outlets, you come from one way. I live on a dead end. Where do I go?
Part of that has to be worked through with the contractor. We don't have the contractor identified, so I'm not going to venture down that. We have had reasonable success in working through those issues on most of our street projects. I'm not going to say it's completely convenient. There's no such thing during a construction project as we have out front here.
Yeah.
But the contractors are generally very cooperative. They're going to work with us and with you specifically as much as they can. I will tell you there are times when you will not be able to access your drive. That's just part of the project, and I can't change that. But generally speaking, they're going to work with you and keep people in their proximity to their
And then
homes.
will I be continued to be notified by mail when all these things happen?
Yes, and there'll be a meeting for the property owners affected by the project as we, once we identify the contractor, we figure out what.
And you'll let me know when that is?
Yes, and we'll have a
right.
chance for you to come in, look at the project, meet with the contractor, with the engineer, talk through those concerns that we have. Big concerns are, how do I get my trash picked up? How do I get my mail? How do I get access to my house? We understand that. This is a special assessment hearing. This is to say, hey, we are looking to do a special assessment on your property as a part of this project.
Okay.
There's a lot more that's coming down to answer those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak on this particular item? Okay. Thank you. Just give us your name and address. Yeah, pull that down.
Susan Case, I live at I'm still on my tiptoes, 105 Fifth Avenue Southwest. And I have some other people that live on the same block as I do, and we were kind of hoping to get a little more information because we do have a lot of questions. Last week, I also turned into the city, here at City Hall, a petition that 4 of the 7 residents in our one block that you're doing have signed that we are objecting to the special assessment. There was a 5th person. He may be here. I don't know him. He's the owner of the building on the corner that used to be Sage's Garden. I don't know him. I sent him the information, and he was going to send it back. I didn't receive it, so if he's here, there would be 5 of 7 people who object. I do have a statement I'd like to read, but I'd also like to ask, you may not have these questions, maybe you can't answer them either, but why one block? Why are you only doing one block?
Well, quite honestly, we have restrictions on how much funding we have available to do streets. We have a comprehensive evaluation of all the streets in the community. There are about 40 blocks that are deemed worthy of attention, if you will, at this time. We can't do 40 blocks in a year, and so we're breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, if you will.
One block at a time.
This particular block is deemed needing complete reconstruction versus a crack and seed or other maintenance. And so combining this block with the 10th Street Southwest portion, we've hit our budget. We've hit our max as to what we can feel we can take on financially for this year. We do have other streets that in your neighborhood specifically that fall under a federal classification where we can get other funding for it. So those are programmed. We have 17 blocks, I think. I saw Brian here. I think there's 17 blocks that we have programmed for 2021 fiscal year, which is for us 2020, that we can start construction on. So we don't want to do those at this point because we have to wait for the federal funding to become available. So we have some limitations on the funding, both where the money's coming from, how we pay for it, as well as how much can we take on in any given year.
I'd like to be given some information on, I know 2nd Street Southwest is, I think, next year. It's horrible. It's concrete. I'd like to know when that was poured. And they keep saying concrete because it lasts longer. I'm going to guess it also costs a lot more. So if concrete on 2nd Street didn't last very long, I'd like to know when that was poured, how much difference there is in the surface we have on our street now, as opposed to putting concrete on, resurfacing it with something like that. 6th Avenue Southwest has, I assume, about the same top surfacing as 5th Avenue Southwest, gets a lot more traffic, and I don't know when that was resurfaced.
6th Avenue was redone 7 years ago because I lived a block off.
Okay, okay. And it's, for the traffic, it's holding up pretty good. So I'm really wondering, do we really have to go concrete? It's got to be a lot more expensive. We're looking at the special assessment, and I know you put one letter out for both 10th and ours, so what we're being charged the special assessment for, I don't think is really clear. It mentions, and I'll talk about this later if I have time, it mentions a storm sewer. I talked to Brian Crawford at Crawford Engineering, and I've lived there 32 years. Guess what? The water flows toward the river. So they want to come in and redo it. We don't have a water problem on 5th Avenue Southwest. We've never had flooding. When it rains, it sits on the side because the street goes like that. I've walked my dog for 13 years. Water sits the same way where you have storm sewers. He said they want the water to flow the opposite direction toward Main Street. I have no idea why you would want to go against what it's going to naturally do and then charge us to do it and to put in I don't know if you're going to put in a storm sewer on the opposite side. On Aaron's side, there's already a storm sewer. You would have to put 2 big fans up to blow the water up there. He's talking about intakes and all that, which I would assume is also going to add to the cost of this, where if you're just resurfacing the road and doing curb and gutter, it shouldn't cost as much as if you're going to do all this other stuff that to me doesn't even make sense. Why would you want the water to go toward Main Street so if it overflows you flood Main Street? It doesn't make sense. So I would really like to see a lot more numbers and figures and somebody explain to us why that's necessary. If it's not a problem, why make it one? Why charge us for something that we don't need? And I know that Crawford Engineering is going to say, well, we need it. Well, we don't think we do, and we don't think we should be charged for something we don't need. So again, I'd like to know when this is going to happen. I'm going to be one of these people. There's 3 of us in the block that have driveways. That's our only out. The people on the corners can go on 1st Street and 2nd Street. But you know, I'm picturing some of you wanting to come down because I'm going to be parking the block down with a little wagon. So when I go to the store, I'm going to be hauling my groceries up and down the block. So if any of you want to come and help me unload it, that'd be great. But we would like to know when this is going to be done, how long this is going to be done, where we're going to do the garbage. There's a lot of questions. We just like somebody to sit here and say, yeah, we did this 7 years ago. It costs this much money. If we do concrete like 2nd Street, that's not lasting, it's gonna cost us, we think there might be a cheaper way. Just because somebody said, here, this is what you should do, we'd like to see if there aren't alternatives that would be cheaper and would not require a special assessment.
The special assessment covers any number of things, as we talked with the last visitor here. The special assessment covers all of those costs associated with rebuilding the street, the curb, the gutter, the storm sewer, if there is storm sewer involved, any of those things that are affiliated with that. I'm not going to be the engineer here tonight, so I'm not going to try and answer the engineering questions. But currently, the special assessment at $30 a linear foot covers just barely, I think it's 20.2% of the cost of the project. So the city is subsidizing 80% of this project for you to rebuild the street. And at this point, that's a pretty fair comparison to what we're doing for rebuilding the street. The street cannot be overlaid. The street cannot be, we can't do standard maintenance on it because the base of it is beyond supporting any kind of asphalt overlay. It's already had an asphalt overlay. It's already had a seal coat. The concrete base underneath it, and I can't remember, Brian, 1952? Pre-1952. So the road, I mean, the existing street as you know it, other than those overlays, has been there a while.
And the storm sewer situation?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer engineering questions. That's not something that I can.
One of the things as a council that we adopted 2 years ago was if we're gonna rebuild a street, we're gonna replace the storm sewer and inspect water lines and gas lines, all the infrastructure that's underneath, because we don't wanna put in a new street and then a year later find out we have broken water mains or broken sewer lines and have to tear the street back up again to do it.
But does it make sense to have the water go the wrong
If you
direction?
pay any attention to the news, infrastructure is probably one of the biggest problems we have in the United States, whether it's bridges, roads, sewer, water, all that type of thing. We're trying to address it all in one shot, so we're not having to come back and redo things. And I know Crawford Engineering did a stormwater analysis for us as a city 2 years ago. And I would have to defer to Crawford's to explain what they're doing with the water system. I'm not sure on stormwater. That is the reason we're replacing the sewer.
That's why they're putting one in.
Getting along just hunky-dory without it.
They've got intake, didn't we, didn't you say
Storm
here and
sewer
have
they
one in
don't
this
have.
corner there?
On First.
It's on First,
It's
okay.
on First.
And right now, a lot of the the curb is all gone on Fifth and several sections, I think.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with putting, if
Okay.
you're telling, if you said, we have a real problem here, please fix it, we're saying we don't have a problem and you're gonna fix it and charge us for it. And that's the problem.
One of the problems we have, and we've seen it throughout town with the stormwater, is that we have a stormwater system that's being overloaded. And some of the reasons that we have to redirect water is that what's downstream from you may be overloaded because of the water that's coming to you. And I don't know if this is the case on this one, but I'm talking in generalities that, as John said, as we've looked at this project, we have problems where, yeah, where you live may be fine, somewhere downstream in the whole stormwater system may not be fine because the system is too full at that point. Give you an example, up at the creamery, we have a serious problem with when the water comes down, it starts filling. And by the time we have a heavy rainstorm that you get up there, we'll have water almost backing into the office because downstream the system is filled. And that's part of, we've had the county request to hook into certain ways into the stormwater system. I guess what I'm saying here is that has been a problem in some parts of town, that because the water's flowing one direction fine for you doesn't mean that that's going to work for everybody downstream from where you're at. And
I'll give you the best example. I lived in that part of town I just moved 2 years ago down to that old division. I lived there for 33 before that. Down the street from you, to the south and east, one block down on 4th and 2nd, that's like a lake in there when you get a big rain.
Yeah, but I
And
have
by redirecting the water from where you guys are to Main Street to the larger mains, that alleviates some of that.
one block.
Yeah.
Okay, we
block.
had a lot of questions, and like I said, I'd still like to see some numbers, but I would like to address you now, if I may. You don't know me. I've worked for 10 years for the school district, and I just recently retired. I worked for 17 years in the Waterloo School District, driving back and forth. I've lived here 32 years. I don't have a boat. I don't have a second car. I don't have a motorcycle. I do not have a camper, a snowmobile, a motorhome. I don't even have a snowblower. I live within my means. If I can't afford it, I don't buy it. Thank God I have good neighbors, because when this last year with all the snow, I have to shovel, but they come and help. I can't afford to pay somebody to take my snow away. So I have good neighbors, and I'm grateful for that. My car is a 2003, which really surprises me because I thought it was a 2004. So it's even 1 year older than I thought. I pay my bills, and I have just enough put back so that I can pay my property taxes and my house insurance and my car insurance. Unless something like this comes up, where basically you're asking me to pay an extra year plus of property taxes for one block. You were elected to serve the citizens of this community. You've been entrusted with our money, that you'll make the right decisions on how it's spent. And if you just accept without question, when a company recommends something, then our trust was betrayed. That's a business. They don't serve our interests, but you should. Like I said, I've lived here 32 years. We've never had a flooding problem. We don't have a water problem. We don't have a water problem on Fifth Avenue. And I can't believe that one block doing all this construction isn't going to cause more problems than it helps. And it's not going to take away the problems down on wherever you said one block. I don't believe that.
Yeah, it will.
You should be able to resurface that road within a budget based on what our property taxes alone can cover. Expecting us to pay for a street used by the city, owned by the city, should be paid by property taxes paid to the city. We should not be expected to pay for something we don't need, and I haven't heard anything yet that, what happens if you do it and it doesn't work? You're going to refund our money? No. Bottom line, if I spend too much money, that's my problem and I'm wasting my money. But if you overspend for something we don't need, that's our money you're wasting, all of ours. This is not why you're sitting there. The trust thing I said, we entrusted you. We trust that you will do the right thing and the fair thing. And that you're not speaking for the people you supposedly represent. And I'd be remiss if I didn't make a comment by somebody that knows way more about this than I do. I'm going to give you a quote from Ronald Reagan from his first inaugural address. And that man was talking about government, and that's what you are. And you are elected by us. Government should work with us, not over us. We expect them to stand by our side, not ride our back. And that's what this feels like. Somebody said we need it, so we're going to do it without even questioning it. Thanks
Yeah,
for your
Brian,
time.
want to talk?
Thank you. I've been saying that for about 7 years now. Same thing. Nobody in this room seems to ever listen. Okay.
It's the people that break their shocks in the streets that don't listen.
What's that, Mike?
Is there any,
People that break their shocks driving on our streets that don't listen to them.
is there anyone else out there that wants to speak on this particular issue that's on the agenda?
What would it be if we didn't put the storm sewers in that block, we just did the road repair?
That's what I'm trying to ask, that's what, we want answers, yeah, that's what we'd like to know.
Brian Crawford, Crawford Engineering here in Independence. Yeah, the total project costs are estimated at just over $272,000. As Al said, 20%, so 10% per side essentially is the assessment piece. The storm sewer,
You're just talking this one block, right, Ryan?
well, they're grouped together.
The 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in this block, I will estimate for you total storm sewer costs are estimated at about 19,000, and so we'll say 20,000 for storm sewer, and I would say a third of that is attributed to the Fifth Avenue project. There's 2 storm sewer intakes that we recommend be installed. In fact, we recommend that you not do the street if you're not going to spend the money on the storm sewer. The street does slope. Right now, it doesn't slope very much, and I understand why it's confusing as to which way the water runs, because it doesn't run very well, and it's so flat. So part of what we're doing as the construction, part of the construction documents, is to enhance that drainage and also provide protection for the new pavement by installing subdrain underneath to drain the base and pipe that to these new storm sewer intakes. So, in my opinion, the storm sewer is absolutely as limited as what we would recommend to do. It is at the down. We are using the existing topography to take the water to First Street. That is the way that it goes, but again, it's so flat right now. We're enhancing and making that street grade a little bit steeper by installing these intakes so that water doesn't sit, become ice during the freeze-thaw process, and cause Tim and his staff a lot of problems. The question about the method of reconstruction has to do with the age and condition. As you guys know, last year we did a crack and seed asphalt overlay project for, I think it was 11 blocks. And those are blocks where we have curb and gutter that is useful and good drainage already. There are, as I think someone has said, there are pieces of curb that are so deteriorated that they're missing on Fifth Street. I know the snowplows have trouble when they get up to the edge. Tim can speak to that better than I can, but he and I have discussed that at this point the road was so poor at one point between now and 1952 or thereabouts that it was resurfaced and then resurfaced again. So it's gone through 2 reconstructions, or two rehabilitations, and it's simply lived its life. So it's time to replace the paving is the right answer. So any other questions that I?
So the storm sewer is a pretty small percentage of it.
Yeah, on that street, I would estimate it's $7,000.
So it wouldn't save the assessed value of the property owner a lot of money if we didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, 10% of 10% spread out, or I'm sorry, 20% of that $7,000, you're talking about $1,400 on that street divided amongst how many owners. So, you know, that $30 a foot allocation is what you guys had set as a kind of a standard. That was what you did for 2nd Street Northeast last year. That was the assessment on that street as well, and really it's a fairly decent example of of a before and after. If you remember what that street was like before versus what it is today. So, any other questions?
Brian, you had talked at one time about the storm drain and the importance of that. We understand taking the water away from the pavement, but you'd also talked about protecting the pavement, in particular during the freeze thaw, and why it's important to move that water away. Do you want to address that?
Right, sure. You as a street, you're fighting two things. You're fighting the loads from the traffic, and probably the more intense deterioration of the street has to do with moisture that gathers underneath the street. And then here in Iowa, as you all know, we've got a freeze-thaw process, so the forces that are generated in those ice lenses underneath as that freeze and thaw happens continues to put pressure on that, and you've seen it on Main Street when it gets under the sidewalk. It heaves the sidewalk. Most of you know about the issues that we have. So that same thing, those same forces are acting on the streets if we don't get rid of the excess moisture that's underneath of the street. So that subdrain is critical, especially to a brand new piece of pavement.
Similar to what you see on frost boils on gravel roads.
Yeah.
Right now,
we're
you
seeing a
really,
lot of those.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the importance of doing, if you're gonna go to the expense of reconstruction, which is what's necessary on this street, if there's gonna be an improvement made, it needs to be reconstruction. You wanna invest in that subdrain, you wanna invest in adequate drainage. There's water that's sitting on that road right now, just after our rain today. I drove by there just before the meeting. And yeah, it is along the sides of the roads, as Ms. Case said, and that's where then it can get through the cracks in the concrete. You're not going to have Portland cement concrete that doesn't have cracks in it. Shrinkage cracks are a fact. And, so that water, percolates down through there, and that's where we've got subsurface problems that end up showing up at the surface eventually over the life of the pavement. So we want to get as much good as we can out of the investment, so we want to use that subdrain to protect it.
Now, when we did the assessments on these streets, we're not putting all of this on Brian's shoulders. We had Iowa State come out, and they did an not infrared, but a ultrasound. Yep. On our streets. We've had other engineering firms look at it. This program we have put together, this is a number of different engineers that have told us we've got very poor, fair, and sort of fair streets. And what we have tried to do is to prioritize, and basically what Brian's telling us is on 5th Avenue Southwest and 10th Street Southwest, those bases are so bad that we cannot fix or put anything over the top of them. It's kind of like painting over rotten siding. It's just not going to help anything. The curbs are gone. We've overlaid. That's where we see in a lot of the streets today. Is part of our problem with the curbs is we've done overlay after overlay, and pretty soon there's no curbs.
These are decisions, to your point, these are decisions that have come out of Public Works Committee and staff, your maintenance staff that's responsible for maintaining these streets. This is all with their input, and as Bob said, it's been a fairly long process that we've gone through, and this prioritization is something that comes from a lot of different directions, and we're all getting the same answer.
So I think one of the problems is people want answers, but they don't like the answer. And no matter how many times we can give an answer, If it's not what somebody wants to hear, it's not the right answer. It's kind of like you take your car into a shop and the guy says, I need to do this work on it, or this isn't going to work. We are at that point with infrastructure. The National Civil Engineers Association, if you've seen any of those, they give Iowa anywhere from a C- to a D+ on its infrastructure. They're not pretty things. You don't see them. They're under the street, and the only time people get upset is when their sewer doesn't work or when they don't have water coming to their house. I had somebody today contact me, and they were upset that we had the street blocked off down by the old football field. I'm pretty sure that's a water main problem right in the middle of the street. We got the street dug up. That's probably about the 6th or 7th water main problem we've had in the last 2 years. Pipes only last so long. Sewer pipes only last so long. We've got a piece of pipe laying out there next to the fire department if you want to take a look at what a water line looks like when it's rusted out on the bottom side. So,
And I did speak with Ms. Case, I think last week, and to be fair to her, she recognized during our conversation that the street is a problem. She's not saying it doesn't need to be, and if you read her letter, it's not that.
No, I understand.
It's about the financing piece of it. That was my read. Okay, so.
Is there somebody else out there from these 2 blocks that was wanting to speak? You need to give your name and address again.
Aaron Davis, 103 Fifth Avenue. Like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily that we're against this street being fixed. I think everybody realizes street improvements are good. My curb in particular is almost not existent, so I am for that. I think really what it comes down to is the budget, the amount that's put on the individual people on that road. And then some people are more able to make that payment than others, and that's really what the issue comes down to. So I'd like to propose that, you know, if the money isn't there this year, then maybe we push this off until next year when it can be fully funded.
one of the problems is there won't be any money next year either. In fact, if the state legislature has their way, which they're debating right now in Des Moines on putting a 2% cap on whatever our budget is this year, it doesn't matter how much new property goes on the tax rolls, which has traditionally been the way you raise revenue. If they have their way of putting 2% cap on our budget for next year, probably nothing going to get done, and we'll be cutting services. So if you'd like it done, this is probably your best time to get it done. Because
another issue is that the funding that we get through grants only covers certain types of streets, and unfortunately, Fifth Avenue is not one of those streets. It has to be a primary, a farm to market or
a collector or a primary arterial.
So that's why we have to use city funds to work on these peripheral streets where we can apply for some help on some of these other streets. And it's a real delicate walk that we have to do trying to do that. And we're trying to be fiscally responsible, not to overshoot our budget by any means. And I can speak from experience because I live on 12th Avenue Northeast, which is a 2-block long street that has no other inlets onto it, so it's 2 blocks long. And I've got a lot and a half, so I paid a lot in assessment. But you know what? It was torn up for about 5 months. And it's the best thing we ever did. And sure, I wasn't prepared to pay that kind of money. I'm going with the 10-year deal on it. But the inconvenience of having to walk all the way to 3rd Street for my car and around the corner to get my mail and haul my trash cans up there. And I had a wagon, I threw my groceries in, hauled it to the house. My wife has a beauty shop, and her customers had to be escorted back and forth to their cars. It was very inconvenient. But on the other hand, we didn't lose total access to our homes for the entire period. Sometimes we were driving on gravel while the street was in the midst of the reconstruction process. but it was totally worth it to me, and I'm quite proud of it. And just a change in the slope, like Brian mentioned, to help move that water along is amazing, because I fought with Mr. Roeder before I was on the council about wanting to get a storm intake up there, because I had big lakes in front of my driveway. And they assured me that the engineers had planned it, that it would drain away, and it does. I'm very happy.
Maybe then I propose that you have something for hardship that they can apply for, that they can have their portion waived or something like that, because just thinking throughout the whole community, there's probably going to be a handful, or if not more, people that are not able to make it, elderly people that are on fixed income, stuff like that, so.
Well, that's where, like Mr. Roeder talked about you can have it just divided up and put on your taxes for 10 years. So you don't necessarily have to write a check right now. And one of the reasons we're doing assessments is to control the property tax. We discussed this a long time, long and hard, about whether or not to assess. For years ago, my 3 little daughters they're not little anymore, but they complained to me that we didn't go to Disney World because we had the street replaced up on 15th Avenue Northeast, and we used the money we'd saved for about 3, 4, 5 years to pay for our assessment to have that street done. But it needed to be done. The thing that irritated me was I had to pay for it twice because we had Orangeburg sewer line, and I had to tear up out into the street not too long after it was put in, so then I had to pay for that too. But then, for some reason, the city decided not to assess citizens, and they said, well, we'll just share it among all 6,000 people. Well, the problem is we don't have any extra money. We bought a fire truck. We had to sell bonds to buy a fire truck, or we didn't have a fire truck. And if your house starts to burn down and we got a fire truck, the pumps don't work, and the truck doesn't work, you're not going to be happy if it's your house burning down. But we have no extra money. So we put together our street project, and part of the financing of it is the city's paying 80% by bonding, but the citizens that live along those streets are also taking part in the cost, sharing on that cost. And when I first went on the council 10 years ago, I was amazed at how many people said, I need a new street in front of my house. I want a new street. I kept thinking, I remember how much that street cost that I had to pay for 20-some years ago. Then I found out the city was paying 100% of every street that was being done. And you'll notice for about 15 years, we didn't do any streets. And part of that was the city found out they didn't have any money to do those streets. So it wasn't an easy decision by this council to start assessing homeowners along those streets to help with the cost. That way we can do more streets with that extra 20% that we're not spending on those streets. So it's not an easy decision, and we all pay those costs. We've all been there. John talks about it. I remember listening to John before he went on to city council. He called me several times, not happy about it, but unfortunately, those are the costs of doing business as a city. So you do have that 10-year option on it, and it is not easy. We understand that. It's not easy decisions.
And Aaron, 6 of the 7 of us up here that vote on these things are retired. And we sympathize with trying to balance your own whole household budget. It's not like we can go out and make all this big ton of money. It's something to think about.
One other thing to point out, the $30 a linear foot, that was originally designed to be approximately a third of the cost of that reconstruction, that cost that we're incurring. In 2015 and 16, that was fairly accurate. The council's opted to stay at that $30 a linear foot. Today it's at 20%. So there's costs that are increasing there. The council's opted not to increase that assessment at this point, but recognize that you've gone from just over 33% to just over 20% in the last 4 years, as far as what it means on the cost of the construction. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, yeah, they're holding the line for the citizens as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, today at the meeting, would you express to the public, when you're talking about the 4 letters as opposed to, the 7, the percentage and how you arrived at that?
Well, on a special assessment, if there is a petition opposed to the special assessment, there's certain provisions that the council has to meet. It takes 75% of the council voting affirmatively on a special assessment. That means 6 of 7, or 5.25 of 7. If there is a 75% of the assessed valuation represented by opposition, that triggers a supermajority, or in this case, a unanimous vote. Currently, based on your valuation for the project, because the project is both 5th Avenue and 10th Street, your total valuation represented is $2.694 million. I have letters of opposition representing $536,740, 19.92%. So at this point, it does not trigger a unanimous vote, but it does require a 75% majority of the council, or 6 of the 7. If we look at any one segment of the property on 5th Avenue Southwest, that valuation percentage comes at 56.5%. So it's still under the 75% threshold, even if we were to split it out into 2 separate projects, which it is not currently.
We also did get a letter today on this for somebody who wasn't able to attend to the meeting that lives in that area. This is from Doug Cook at 115 5th Avenue Southwest. It says, I wanted to speak in favor of the project. I am a property owner with the highest assessment. We have lived here for 40 years, and it has only been overlaid once in my knowledge. My child was injured due to the condition of the street. I am in support of the project and the repair of the city streets. So we haven't heard from everybody, but majority here.
And all the other letters that we had received, I received those on Thursday, so those were attached to the agenda for everyone to see.
So is there anyone else out there that we haven't allowed to come up forward? Any other items that need to be made part of the record?
Tim, did you want to express anything on the maintenance, as Brian had indicated your concerns?
You need to come forward if you're going to speak at all. Sorry.
Tim Donnelly, 1924 Lee Avenue. I agree with Brian. If you're not going to do the sub-draining and the storm sewer, there's no use doing the street, because that's the biggest part of that project. I mean, it might be the least amount of cost, but it's the most important part of that project. And the big picture of it, like Al says, we have 17 blocks of overlay next year, which will take that 2nd Street in the southwest as part of that project. So this one block and that all, it's all in the works together in the big picture. So it's not just like one little block out there by itself. It does work together in the big picture.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that.
Yes, sir.
Well, if there's no other comments that need to be brought forward, then I need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now out of public hearing. Next on the agenda is the resolution.
You have 2 resolution of necessity items. Gina, you'll have to correct me if I misspeak. One is if you want to adjourn this portion of the meeting, if you're not ready to make a decision on the resolution of necessity. Or you have the resolution of necessity if you're ready to vote on it.
They actually have 3 options. They can kind of basically table us, say they're not ready to make a decision on resolution of necessity, they can amend the resolution of necessity and have to state exactly what changes they want to make, and we can have bond counsel write that up. Or they could go on and approve the resolution of necessity as it is presented.
Thank you. If, excuse me, if it was tabled, I guess one of the questions is, how long would it delay the project? I mean, are we a short timeline, Jenna?
Yes and no. The longer you delay the bid letting, the less favorable the bids are traditionally.
Sure.
So, you know, if you wanted to table it, it would be to make a specific change. There's something.
Specifically as it states
If
now.
you want to change the assessment from $30 a linear foot to, and you can only go down, you can't go up at this point, as I understand it, that's fine. If you want to change the scope of the project, you want to take a portion of the project out of the special assessment, you're starting the process over. You go back to square one, re-advertise, re-notify, et cetera. So changing the scope of the project is really not an option for you at this point if you want to do it yet this year. But you can change the parameters of the assessment itself if you wanted to amend it. And that's what the bond council would change for you.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to accept as planned and a resolution ordering the preparation of the detailed plans, specifications, notice of hearing, and notice to bidders in the form of contract.
May I interrupt you?
You may.
I would prefer that you address the resolution of necessity first, and if you want to maintain the current proposed resolution of necessity, it would be item C on your agenda, which is adopting the resolution of necessity.
I'd make the motion, would do the necessity, we'll let you say the other.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution of necessity for the 2019 street improvement project, correct?
Yes.
Both of you? All right. A roll call.
Shar,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes, I do feel bad for you, Sue, when it comes to it's a hardship, but I do think the road needs to be done. And the engineer says the storm sewer, you know, he's gave us good advice. I think as a council, yes.
Okay.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Okay, motion is carried. Then next, we do need the resolution that you were addressing, if you want to make that motion.
Resolution ordering the preparation of detailed plans, specifications, notice of hearing, notice to bidders in form of contract.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Yeah.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Kurtz, second by Hayward. Do we need a roll call on this?
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Shar,
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried also.
I would like to comment here. I am very proud of this city council. I've been on here for 11 years, and about the first 5 years, we wrung our hands and we talked and talked and talked. Carl will attest to this, Bonnie will attest to it, and we never took care of anything. And we all know this is painful. We feel bad for everyone, but the council is biting the bullet, and they are taking heat from citizens, but we are doing what we need to do, so.
Okay. Moving on, our next item is First Street West Trail public hearing. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of the notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing in regard to First Street West Trail project. Is there anyone out there wanting to discuss this particular item. Introduce yourselves and address, please.
Aaron and Sue Down, 1704 First Street West. And we're the owners of Gary's OK Body Shop, Ski-Doo, and Can-Am. And we have been at that location for 52 and a half years. We do have concerns about the proposed First Street West Trail. And we have spoken with other property owners along First Street West, and we do have a signed petition by 16 property owners who also have concerns about this issue. Some of the points we'd like to bring up are as follows.
Yeah, we've got problems with the existing stormwater runoff. It only takes a couple inches before we're all flooded out there. They're gonna have to move the storm sewers, the sanitary sewers, the street lights, the utility poles, the traffic signs, the business signs are gonna have to be moved. There's just absolutely no room out there for a trail on the north side of the street. I mean, plus, you've got the hazards to all the pedestrians, to install a trail or sidewalk or so many commercial driveways. There's 16 on the south side and 20 on the north side between 9th and 20th Streets. There's lots of traffic before school, lunchtime, and after school going by there. The current speed limit's 30 miles an hour. I've lived there for 52 and a half years, and it used to be 70 miles an hour in front of there. It seems like most people are going by at 40. So, they're going faster than, I mean, everybody drives 10 miles an hour. It's just the way it is.
Might be a good place
You're
for
gonna have to
fun.
add 2 crosswalks there if you want the trail on the north side. You should have, I mean, when I was a kid, we went down 3rd Street to a crosswalk at Casey's. That's how we did it. I mean, we still can. That's how I had to cross the street to get to school. So I went to West Elementary, middle school, and all that there. So. And there's no place to pile the snow and the water drainage and stuff since First Street's been widened. Everybody that's on this list has got water in the place now every time it rains. The street's been raised, I don't know, probably 4 times it's been surfaced since I've been there. There's some stuff for you to say too.
And we also feel the frontage just isn't there to fit any sidewalk or trail. We used to have a 12-foot easement before they widened the street. Now we have 6 foot available. First Street has been raised at least 4 times, raising it 24 to 30 inches. There's a 5 to 8 foot deep drainage ditch that is no longer in existence. 300 to 500 acres all drain through the First Street West Valley. All of our products would be sitting in the ditch that we like to display out front. The existing trotter trail is 2 blocks to the south. It already connects First Street West to all the schools safely for the kids to walk on. The safe bike route is 2 blocks to the north. And we would like to see paving of Liberty Trail finished and connect that maybe to Trotter Trail. And in closing, I guess we just feel this is very unnecessary and the problems outweigh the benefits. And
well, in past council meetings in September, they were talking about this, and they were talking about hiring somebody to come in and specializes in getting easements from people. And then they were gonna break it down into 2 phases, and I'll do phase 1 now, phase 2 later. And then, once it starts, it's not gonna quit.
Do you have a copy of that petition? We need a copy of your petition you spoke of for records.
Got it here.
We need to have that.
Yeah, both pages. And there's about 6 people I couldn't contact because they weren't available, and there's other people that signed papers.
I guess we just don't understand why it's necessary
Why
or
it's necessary to
needed.
have that trail on the north side of the street.
Or
Is the,
south.
Or
is
south,
the Is the first stage that we're talking about, as of now that we're in this public hearing for, go down to your property?
No.
Doesn't it stop before it gets to you?
Phase
Stops
one
at
apparently, but there are other phases.
Advanced auto or
Yeah.
something, this as far as it goes?
But,
Yeah.
yeah, if that's where it stops, I probably wouldn't have a problem, but it seems like once these projects get started, eventually they finish. And the proposed trail system by the trail committee is to have a walking trail on each, or a bike trail on each side of the street, so.
And this JCG suggested the different phases, correct, or?
Well, there was a proposal last fall when it was looked at to do
Right.
that, and that was scrapped by the council yet last fall.
Okay, so there won't be a phase two of this?
Well, at this point, we're only going as far as 15th. This is federally funded. The trail project is, so there's standards that we have to meet. There's not sufficient right-of-way west of 15th. That's the lion's share of what that was looked at, and that, quite honestly, is too much money for right-of-way acquisition, so it was dropped at that point. Going to 15th Street with the trail and the trail criteria, there is right-of-way in there for that, and that's why it's going to that
Correct,
point.
on 15, so that, yeah.
Correct. So I'm not gonna say that there's not a phase two. I mean, at this point, that's all been dropped because we don't have the right-of-way.
Right, then there's no way they can drain that much water. I mean,
We have water in our business now.
we've got water in there now, and if they fill that in a little bit to bring it closer to my business, it's just like filling in part of the river and expecting it not to be flooded.
I think the only thing we've even talked about is if we did go farther west, is skipping back across to the south side, because there are some owners farther down that don't have the water problems that have indicated they might be willing someday. But as Al said, right now, we don't have any money to go any farther.
Well, if it goes 20 feet, it's gonna be on my driveway.
Yeah.
On the park.
And the one house right there,
I
basically,
know,
we-
right on, yeah.
You'd be touching it as you went by.
Yep.
One of the big concerns was brought to us by the school, actually, was having a safe crosswalk at some point where kids could actually cross First Street to get to the schoolyard, and without having to go all the way down to Casey's.
Right.
And that's why we picked crossing over right there by Mosier's, which would be a natural place. And it's amazing how much actual foot traffic there is that walks up and down First Street. So a trail would be a great thing to have, but it's not gonna.
There isn't any in front of
There's
our-
no room down by you guys.
There's no foot traffic whatsoever.
Oh, now Sue, I'll have to argue with you. I worked at that store for.
We're there all the time.
I've been there for
15 years. I was there 15 years. You'd be unbelievable how many.
Well, they must
people walk
stop at
by.
Advance then.
Well, where else would you wanna go?
Right, right? Where else is there to
I'm
go?
serious. No, really, there is a lot of foot traffic.
I'll sit there and count the people walk by if you want.
No, I'm sure you don't get that many out there.
I've done that. It was 0.
Thanks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't get that many out.
Good traffic out there. I see one bicycle a day maybe go by.
He shows up at school too. I counted him in the background. One.
One bicycle, yeah.
And you guys are right, your business is so close to
Well,
that.
Oh, it
alright,
is, it's
I mean,
just,
I was asked to go out by Aaron, and I went and spoke to some other people, and if you got, we were talking about that the other day. Quite a few years ago, we're in front of Gary's, there was a 5-foot ditch, at least.
At least 5.
At least 5 foot. This is years ago now. Well, when I was out there, standing in Aaron's showroom there, I mean, you don't even have to be a scientist to look out there and see where that road's at compared to, obviously you can see the water problems. And you go down, and I went over and talked to Mike's, because I was in a snow pile, there's no place to go, none. So I have to concur, if, I don't have opposition with phase 1, but if we're thinking about going out there with them guys that are on phase 2, I absolutely don't. And the utility poles and all that stuff out there,
We see the petition.
Where's phase 1 gonna stop?
15th Avenue,
By Advance Auto.
yeah.
See, I don't
Quarter
remember.
advance auto.
See, we talked about that too.
Yeah, Carl and I talked, I thought phase 1 was gonna go past the school and stop. Because we couldn't decide whether we were gonna cross the road or not, or just put some kind of a crosswalk there or whatever, and then poof, all of a sudden we're going out to Advanced Auto, and I don't know, I went back through the minutes and I could not see where we ever approved anything going anywhere out there.
We've had several presentations on that.
We've had some presentations, but we talked about stopping at the school talked about picking that up and taking it to the south and hooking up with their trail. You know, I remember all those, but I don't remember us ever saying phase 1 is gonna cross over and go out to 15th. Prove me wrong. I looked, I can't find it anywhere in where it's even on the agendas.
What are you saying, Mike, that we're gonna do this part and then that's just drop there? We're not gonna go on to a phase 2?
He doesn't recall us moving across the street and going down the north side.
We couldn't decide whether to stay on the south or go to the north.
I couldn't tell you when it was.
So I thought we decided we just go to the end of the school for now, for phase 1, and then if the school decided they were gonna hook up to the Trotter Trail, we wouldn't have to do it. That would be your route out to Iowa Avenue, you know, and we wouldn't have to go on either side. You know, and part of it depends, is this a trail or is this a walkway for kids going to school? Because I have sat out in the DHS parking lot 5 mornings and 5 afternoons from 7:30 to 8:15 in the morning and from 3 o'clock to 3:45 in the afternoon, and I can see from Rydell's to Pizza Hut. Not ever once did I see one kid trying to go across that street anywhere in that stretch. Now, granted, 5 days is not a very large sample, but you'd have to show me that there's a need to make that a safe route for kids to get to school.
That's what Trotter Trail is for, in my opinion. Keep the kids away from the traffic.
What about
It
the kids?
doesn't make sense.
What about the kids on the northwest side? How are they getting to school?
Crossing at Casey's.
They're going all the way down to Casey's still?
Well,
Like you?
They're
did?
not crossing between Rydell's and Pizza Hut.
They're walking right across my parking lot, right into Mosier's and then to the school.
Times have obviously changed.
How many
You know,
kids,
There
John?
isn't that many kids in that.
How many
And
kids?
nobody walks anyway, they all get
How many
rides.
kids do that?
They all
John?
take the.
Okay, let's not all talk at once.
How many kids do that, John?
Not that
What, ride or walk?
No, cut across there.
I-
Several of
I'm
those
not
people that
opposed
signed that
to-
petition have
Not very many.
contacted me, and their concern is just what I heard Sue and Aaron saying. If we do this phase 1, they want to go on to the phase 2. And I don't think you're going to find a person beyond phase 1 to phase 2 that wants to do it. That's what Carl said.
You're gonna have problems on either side.
If we plan on doing a phase 2, because all those people on that list are gonna be irate, to say the least.
Well, one of the things you'd mentioned, Mike, if we went up to that school, like you'd mentioned the other day when we were talking, about if we did cross there, where that goes up to that school, putting a, not a bus stop thing, but a.
Kind of a little shelter like they have for bus stops.
Yeah.
Right there, and make that a crossing, but the kids have to funnel there, cross the street there. I'd be fine with that, but I don't think there needs to be a trail anywhere beyond that.
No.
I don't think there's room for it. I mean, just from what we've seen and grown up seeing.
So when you had that ditch out there, you guys probably didn't have any water problem.
No.
Water problem.
So when the city redid the road.
Well, it used to be the highway. It used to be 20 before
Right,
the
but I'm saying that the city-
4-lane
the
went
city,
into
when
effect.
they redid it, they created their water problem already. We don't want to create another problem for
When
them.
it was still Highway
More.
20, there was a 4-foot culvert going on each driveway.
Right.
Going over the other side of the street. Only had water in it, and we had 6 inches of water running through the.
But that's when it was still Highway 20. Was it widened because it was Highway 20? Was that why it widened?
Put in a turning lane.
Was it? Yes. Credit the Ritter.
When it was the highway?
It's higher than.
Okay, let's see if there's anyone else that may want to talk on this.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Al, when did you, remember you had to contact the state to get the project amended?
Yeah, it was in October that we amended the project to reduce it from 10 blocks to the 5+ blocks that we have currently. Councilman Hayward's point, it was September 24th that we addressed it. Council tabled the proposal for the right-of-way acquisition, and we also looked at the total project cost. And part of the issue was not just the acquisition of right-of-way, but the total project cost without that was beyond where we felt that it should be, and so it was reduced to 15. It was in October that we had to shrink that down and get the blessing of the TAP committee.
Yes, would you like to, are you wanting to speak on this particular hearing part?
What, are you
Name and
cutting-
address,
are you
please.
cutting him
Blake
off
Hayward.
down there?
509 4th Street Northwest. I guess I have several questions. What's the goal of this trail? Is this a trail for the kids to school, or is this like a bike trail for the community? I think that makes a difference
It's-
as far as,
Mine has always been it's for the kids getting to school safely.
okay. Who decides where the trails go? Like we had Iowa State University came in, decided which roads were bad, and kind of prioritized a list out of that. Who makes this list of deciding where that trail goes?
We had Crawford Engineering do a study because remember before we were going, when Carl, you were mayor, we were going to run it on the south side and that was a no-go.
Right.
And we asked Crawford Engineering to come back and recommend to us which side the road would be, what would be a good proposal to meet the needs out there. And I can't remember when that was last year sometime.
And is there any input from city departments or Indigo Healthy or any outside group, or is there just Trails Committee? Okay.
When did the school actually get involved and agree to do it on the south side by the school in order to get that trail in there?
I don't know if they ever agreed to it, but they thought that was a practical solution that they would take a look at. And I think that was when we had that meeting between the Board of Supervisors and the city and the school people.
Yep.
Okay.
Didn't they have a special meeting though to approve our use of the right-of-way in front of Kidsville?
Yes.
Is the
School
Park and
board.
Rec involved in any of that conversation?
I think they were, yeah.
School actually gave the city an easement, if you recall.
Right.
We only had to ask one. Absolutely. We're very much in favor.
I think
The first one.
the Dones kind of touched on it. What's the next steps on the north side of the street? If it just stops at 15th Avenue Northwest, or if there's a bigger picture of where we're heading with it. Are we gonna try connecting it to 20th Avenue? Is that kind of the ultimate goal? Is it connecting to the Trotter Trail? Generally, people like to walk in a loop or a circle. And I would think for Park and Rec, they would prefer to maybe make a loop instead of right now they're driving down in front of Fairway, get out to Enterprise, and then turn around and come back. Seems like a dead end. for them right now. Whereas if they had, I think removing snow and maintaining would be a lot easier. So just kind of trying to figure out what the game plan is. What's a 5-year, 10-year plan?
Well, our next, after the, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but our next part of the project is to finish the Enterprise Drive down to 6th Avenue Southwest, and then go north along 6th Avenue Southwest, so we do create a loop in there that you could walk the entire town for that loop. I think that's our next, am I?
That is the next one that's on the, hey, we, you know, let's get some funding to help finish up the project.
Yep.
Because that fits very nicely into the TAP fund and the guidelines for the TAP funding. There's 3 different sources of funding we looked at for trails. Each one address a different portion of trail or a different type of trail. So with what we're discussing here, that would be the next one. That's
Are we currently looking at funding to finish Liberty Trail?
To finish Liberty Trail, that would be a state parks or state rec trail, I think they call it. We also looked at REAP funding. It has not been competitive to this point, but we're looking at, you know, how can we adjust that to make it competitive. The TAP program is not a good fit for that because generally TAP funds are used for trails that are in proximity to a highway or a roadway. They want it next to a street or a road, a highway type of thing. So the funds that we're using here are not consistent with what that would be.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but even if we do work on the enterprise portion, it may not cover all the way to 6th Avenue Southwest in one chunk. It might have to be split into 2.
To 6th is fine. It's when we turn north that we run into an issue. It's actually targeting from Walmart where it terminated to 6th Avenue north to Old Subdivision. When we go north of there, that's the section that's in question, north of Lover's Lane to Bland Boulevard. That stretch in there is the one that is in question. That's correct.
Is it too late to change trail path? West side of that school's drive and then go south, or is it basically all or nothing on the project cost?
At this point, the way the program is set up, if we amend the termini or amend the route, it's likely we'd have to turn back the funds and reapply. I don't think that they were gracious in allowing us to shorten the termini of the trail from 20th down to 15th. But that's because the funding didn't change, everything else stayed consistent. If we change the direction of the trail, we're going to have to turn those funds back in, is my understanding.
Okay. And then just a couple observations that I made. I've gone around and done basically every route in the city, every bike trail and route in the city, but just for this trail specifically on First Street, there's 13 commercial drives on the north side of First Street and 10 on the south side of First Street that sidewalk would be crossing through. So this trail for the kids is going to be crossing in a lot of commercial businesses potentially. I agree with John that when I worked out Advance, there's people walking nonstop out there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're going to have to cross some commercial driveways too to get in there that we haven't had an incident to my knowledge, but there's just a lot of commercial drives on both the north and south side. And then another thing that I thought was interesting, there is currently no sidewalks anywhere west of 8th Avenue Northwest. So kids are walking in the streets. Anything west of 8th Avenue Northwest. So to have 9th Avenue be a crossing at Casey's there seems to be a logical option. That sidewalk is only partially from the apartments down to Casey's. It's not the full block. So I think potentially sidewalks could be an issue as well. down the future, if we're putting a trail to a road that doesn't have a sidewalk, there's no sidewalks up there.
I'm just amazed at this town not having sidewalks. I come from Ottumwa, Iowa, and we have sidewalks all over that town. You couldn't build a house, build a business or anything without having a sidewalk. They never were
There's
away.
a lot on the bike trails, even that there's a dead end for
Yeah.
3 blocks or 6 blocks or 8 blocks that have no sidewalks and just go to nowhere. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Blake.
So did you walk in the streets when you said you went down to Casey's? Yeah, yeah. Because you were talking about that you always went on all the way down to Casey's in order to get over to school. So in the north side, since there's not sidewalks, I'm assuming you walked in the street all the time?
Oh, yeah, we go up to Third and walk down, we didn't walk along Highway 20 here.
Yeah, but still you were in the streets because there was no,
Basically, yeah, it wasn't even paved then.
okay,
It was dirt road, yeah, it's kinda scary at night.
okay.
Could I call on Chief Dallenbach? I know over the years, we've had the discussions about people walking along First Street, going to Dollar General from up by the housing areas. And even police officers having concerns about them walking in the street. You want to comment on that?
Unfortunately, this trail is coming in a little too late for the elderly couple that would always walk down First Street. And law enforcement would always get a call on them walking in the middle of the road or on the side of the road. One would stay on the grass because they could walk on the grass being uneven as it was, and the other would walk in the street. One of them has passed away and the other one got moved. So they're no longer an issue for us, but with them being out there, if one would happen to slip or fall in the street, that'd be a very big concern for us. Not now that they are gone, we still have a bunch of people that walk back and forth. They usually cut across parking lots, across the grass, some way of getting from one to another, but just even being out there, if it's icy and they slip in the middle of the road, now they maybe injured themselves. If nobody sees them, they might get hit. Walking over the grassy area, I mean, easily could trip, fall.
And in the wintertime, you
Yes.
can't walk through all the big snow drifts out.
No, you cannot. So in the wintertime, when all the snow gets plowed onto the grass and everything, the only place they have to walk is in the street. So, the much snow and ice and stuff that we get in these wintertime, especially this last year, I hate those scenes when they try to walk. Having a sidewalk or a trail for them to walk on is gonna be a benefit. Whether it's a sidewalk that's only a couple feet wide compared to a trail that's 8 feet wide, it'll be something to keep them off of the road. Something that's, that they can actually travel on instead of being out in the traffic. It'd be a great benefit for them.
Would TAP funds allow for less than 8 feet?
No. This program requires a 10-foot trail. Mr. Crawford was able to petition them to get an exception, a hardship, if you will, to reduce it to 8. 8 would be the bare minimum that this can be, and still qualify for federal funds. The funding requires a 2-foot, what's the word, shoulder, yes. So you have to have 2 feet on either side of the trail regardless of the width, that's correct. We believe in walk-in business for you.
They just go in one door and out the other.
No, this trail has been a project for many, many years since I moved into town. This trail has been an ongoing thing. One of the council members that was here is no longer with us, was one that was all in favor of putting this on the south side of the road, and I know the concerns of it being there with the businesses. That's why when Crawford came through with it being on the north side, I felt it's the most logical place to be on the north side. Starting with off of Liberty Trail going in front of the schools, yeah, and then traveling across First Street there, you have a place for the kids that do live in the apartment complexes and stuff that do travel, can have a safe place to travel to get to school instead of driving or walking all the way down to 9th, then going kitty corner across the street to be able to use the traffic light down there. That traffic light for kids crossing the street, in my opinion, shouldn't be a traffic light for kids, for anybody crossing the street at an angle like that. So it's a concern of mine, just that intersection alone.
That's the Casey's intersection you're talking about?
Having somebody, now that the school takes care of the crossing guard in that location. Having one closer to where actually the school is, it'd be easier, line of sight for people that are at school to actually be able to see that intersection, see what's going on there compared to where it's at now. I honestly, I think it's best to have a trail or sidewalk going that direction for people that do walk, because there are many that do.
When you talk about trails and sidewalks, I hate to talk about the dead, but he wanted all the trails in town, but people walked past his place, which was a dangerous place with no sidewalks. So it makes a difference of where it's at and who's paying for it when people go saying, I want a sidewalk there, I want a trail there, or, because we could come along and say everybody in town's gotta put a sidewalk in.
That's what our ordinance currently says.
Yes, it does. The people that don't have one, it was waived at that time.
Go back to it and say, hey,
Well,
put a sidewalk in. Everybody's
know,
walking in the streets.
I hope that never happens again, just when you were on the council and you were on the council, and so you, and when the developments come in now, we no more, there's no more variance. That was
Right.
not waived again, because when you go around our town, Dustin, you like to go up in the Greenleaf and district like that, and you see those younger people out there, there ain't no place to go.
I've driven around places where you have one house that has a sidewalk that stops at each end of their property. The neighbors don't have any. So, okay, so I'm shoveling my sidewalk for my property, but my neighbors don't have it. So nobody's really gonna walk down my sidewalk to get to somebody else. My opinion, if our ordinance says we need to have a sidewalk in additions or houses that are built, it needs to stay that way.
Correct.
I said every single time that's going on. I love to walk. I take my kids for a walk. I take my dog for a walk. And a lot of people are getting more out and about than maybe a few years ago. So
But then a lot of people that we have sidewalks still walk the streets. You see it every day.
Right.
Just
When that
depends on-
schoolhouse was down there by my place, I built them a brand-new sidewalk and they walked in the street.
So I have to interject here. We're in a public hearing
Yeah.
discussing the First Street West Trail project from
Right.
Liberty Trail to 15th.
Any other questions for me?
Is there anyone else out there wanting to address that, the reason we're in public hearing as it is? No? Okay, then I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Kurtz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is resolution awarding contract. There,
This has been a state DOT bid letting, and they have let the bid. They're waiting for us at this point to go through our process to determine where we're going with the project.
I'd make the motion, we approve the awarding of the contract.
Second.
motion by Hill, second by Kurtz. You need a roll call on this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
No,
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
No.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
What's your total? 5, 4, 2, 2?
yeah, I had
That
two,
didn't,
two
that,
opposed.
that didn't need a supermajority or anything, did it?
No.
Okay. So,
Can we redo it?
we approved the bid letting and such, but yet we're not approving the trail itself or the location of the trail?
That is what you, I mean, that's finished. The contract's awarded by virtue of the 5-2 vote.
So, and doing the south side and crossing over and doing the north side,
Yes.
okay? Council is aware of what they just
We're
passed.
not going clear out to 20th. Just
Stopping.
No,
at
we're
50.
stopping at
It's going to
15th.
15th, and that's the extent of the trail.
Okay. Moving on.
One thing, Nat, when's this going to be done?
Gotta be done this year.
That will be this year. I can't tell you specifically because until there is a contract, we're not allowed by law to discuss the project with the contractor, so there is nothing for us to discuss until tomorrow at this point.
So did they award a contractor on this already, the state?
They've identified the apparent low bid, which is Lodge Construction, but the contract is yours to award, which is the vote that you just took.
So we just awarded the bid to Lodge Construction, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I can comment on the timeline, because that was part of the DOT's instructions to bidders, that this is a completion date contract, and it is to be completed before school starts in the fall.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
That's good.
For the record, I would like to say that my vote of yes was strictly based on public safety and the fact that we were stopping at 15th, because as the Doans said, there's no room as you go further west on either side that wouldn't impede a business or things like that.
Should we have put in that letter from, that we got, that email?
It's
as part of-
attached to the agenda, it's public
Okay.
record.
So it is part of the public record, okay. Okay, moving onward. We are down to another hearing. This is for the airport taxiway project. A motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf, second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Then I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing in regards to the taxiway widening at the airport.
This is a 90-10 federally funded project to widen the taxiway on the east side of the T hangars to the south and across the south end of the T hangars to the taxiway that runs adjacent to the runway. The low bid was Chig Fry Construction. The engineer's estimate was $424,000. The bid was $264,000. The project really opens up 5 additional commercial hangar spaces that at this point are not available because of the limited space on the T hangar, or the taxiway adjacent to the T hangars. We also have insufficient clearance for larger wingspan aircraft between the existing east T hangar and the electrical vault building, and this would address that as well.
And it's funded by the federal for 90%. We are recovering 10, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Based on what we get per year from the FAA in the lower contract bid, are there additional projects we can use with that money that we've acquired? 3 years of acquisition of money, isn't it, or 4 years?
Well, we're limited to 3 years of acquisition. The 4th year, you have to expend it or give it back. This will take us into really the first 2 years of, I'm say, the oldest 2 years of allotment. So there will be money left to use on other projects, yes. We have not specified that at this time. You know, obviously, that's something that has to come back to the council through the airport board, but there will be some additional funding available for other projects moving ahead.
We're not due to lose any of the FAA money as a result of the...
Not as long as we do a project this year that takes at least 1 year's allocation.
Has there been any more discussion about the additional area for the spray plane operators that was talked about before?
Right. The separate from this project was a taxiway and parking ramp, if you will, for we'll call it transient aircraft, the crop dusters in particular, because they take up a lot of our tarmac area currently during the season. That is a $1 billion federal infrastructure program designated for airports. There has been no additional word on that since the government shut down several months ago. It has not resurfaced. We keep asking about it, and nobody's heard anything. So at this point, we're in a holding pattern. We do have a preliminary design. We've got an application in. I do know that the number of, the dollars of application were about 70 times the amount of money available in the state of Iowa. I mean, it was something obnoxious, and I won't repeat the numbers, but it was billions for, you know, hundreds of thousands available.
I do have a question. In the past, we always had to the airport committee had to put together a CIP projection.
Correct.
Now that the airport board is up and running, will they be presenting, I think it went out 5 years, will they give the council something on future plans?
Yes, and they're working on that currently. At their last meeting, there was a discussion about the CIP and where that's at, and that will be coming to the council as it is finalized and developed. So, yes, we have to look ahead 5 years for our plans. Where's that money going? With this project being funded when we go through this, then the next one will come in. Again, talking to those allocations.
So the money we were gonna do for that area for the the sprayers or whatever, was a different fund than what this money is that we may have left over here?
Correct. The money that we were looking at for that was a federal supplemental grant program that paid, the proposal was to pay 100% of all costs, including engineering, as opposed to our current 90-10, and then the engineering was on top of the 90-10 that this project fits under.
Okay.
And the federal monies that are coming to us are raised through FAA licensing and fuel sales and that type of thing. It's not regular.
That's my understanding.
Regular tax dollars.
Correct. It's
done through the air industry.
Exactly. The aviation fuel sales, licensing, anything that goes with that, correct.
I really think we need to just go ahead and approve this, because we've been talking about this since I was on the airport board probably 4 or 5 years ago. We laid out all of these private hangars, and as Al said, we can't use them because there's no taxiway in front of the lots. So we've had people look at them but turn down the idea of building out there, because I think the only one that did, he built part of his runway himself.
Correct.
Not everybody can do that.
Is there anyone else out there that wants to speak on this public hearing in regards to the airport taxiway? We don't have anything in writing received on that. So then I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf, second by Kurtz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are out of public hearing. So now we can go on to airport taxiway widening contract award.
I would ask that if you vote to approve this contract, that you pay special attention to the wording. It is very significant that you add that this contract award is subject to Jig-Fry Excavating meeting the DBA goal, good faith effort criteria. So please make your motion subject to that.
Do they know this?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I was going to say, okay.
I'd make the motion as Al stated it there.
You don't want to read all that and fill in the blank? Or?
I'd mess it up.
I second it as such.
Well, I'm not repeating. Would you like to tell them what the motion is?
They got it. They had it out of mouth.
Then let's take a roll call.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Kurt.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Shar.
Yes.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried. That hearing went a lot easier, didn't it?
Nobody was being assessed.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda, a motion to approve a resolution to assess property owners for Chapter 136.03 snow removal. Did I hear a motion on
I'll
that?
make the motion that we,
Motion by O'Loughlin, seconded by
Second.
Scharf. Roll call, please.
Now, this is for snow that we removed.
yeah.
Yes,
Fill 'em.
there's a list of them on your agenda.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Shar.
Yes.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion's carried. Next is House File 773, Property Reform Bill.
This is a resolution that basically opposes House File 773. It's got a sister bill in the Senate that severely restricts the City of Independence and all other public sector entities in their ability to levy property tax. It does not, while there's several pitfalls to the bill. There's rumor of a a strike-through bill that was supposed to be out today. At this point, it's still a rumor. But I wanted to give you an opportunity as a council to voice your opposition to the bill if you so choose. We did admittedly borrow the language from another community, but I think it was very succinct and to the point.
I have talked to the county supervisors, and they are definitely not in favor of this either.
I don't know.
What's really sad is we do all this work trying to bring business in and develop the community, housing, the new apartments, the new Skogman deal we just did for 14 new homes. And with the whole idea of eventually raising our tax base so we can pass it on to our taxpayers and lower their property taxes, and then they turn around and handcuff us, which is really a sad deal.
So much for home rule, which
Yeah.
has been established in Iowa since the 1870s.
I think there's an election coming up, maybe.
Okay, did I get a motion on this?
I'll make the motion that we
Motion from
support
McLaughlin,
this.
second by Kurtz. Any other discussion? Then a roll
It's
call.
basically a backdoor attack on the IPER system.
That is the biggest culprit right now, is the fact that IPERS is mandated as to what we have to raise in trust and agency to cover the amount that's dictated to us. And they're saying, you can't do that. You have to take the money from someplace else.
I thought they explained that, some of the legislators explained that it didn't affect the IPERS. They were taking that out of a different fund or something, so that we weren't.
That was suggested, it was not
Wasn't put in there? Okay.
really offered in the sense, lots of talk. But
Okay.
the trust and agency, which is basically your mandated personnel, your benefits costs are included in that 2%. Your benefit costs, which are mandated to us. Health insurance, we have no choice in. We have fought hard the last 5 years to minimize our increase in health insurance costs. That averages between 8 and 11% a year, with the changes that we've made. And for those people that have an interest or understand the health insurance, we've increased the city's deductible on our health insurance plan to $5,000. So it's a high deductible plan. It's, in essence, the highest deductible we can get. Now, we do partially self-fund that down for our employees, which helps some, but we can't control health insurance costs, which far exceed the 2% that they're allowing us, as an example.
Doesn't it also even affect any union negotiations, because we'd be limited as to how much?
Yeah, there's really well, we could spend a half hour talking
On
about
just
the
what-
negative pieces. There's
Right.
several pieces of this bill, House File 773, that don't work. It's just contradicting everything that's mandated to us.
Well, they just kind of pulled it out of the air for the beginning of the session. There'd been no talk about it, and then all of a sudden,
Actually, all these types of bills come from a source called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is funded by the Koch brothers and several other people, and put forth. These legislators that submit these bills do not write the bills, and they probably don't understand the verbiage of the bills. And yet, they vote on them because they're in party line, and that's the extent of it. It's a larger overall structure. Getting rid of portions of Chapter 20, instead of getting rid of the whole union, they kept part of it because now they can't strike. There's no strike clause within the union. So there's a method to the madness that's been going on, and this is just another component of it.
It's a classic, pass the bill and then find out what's in it.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a motion, a second on. Can we go ahead and do a roll call, okay, everybody?
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Good. We will let them know what we think. Thank you very much for doing that. Motion is carried.
And I would also hope citizens would give their legislators a call. Unfortunately, the one representing us in the House agrees that it's a stupid bill that shouldn't be passed, so it's like preaching to the choir. But our senator needs some encouragement on the fallacy of this.
So if they have an opportunity, if they'd email or call Senator Johnson, that would be greatly appreciated on our part, and it might be informative for him as well.
To hear from more people. Yep. Okay, next on the agenda is the Ward 4 sidewalk survey.
It's that time of year where we have our sidewalk surveys to complete. In this year, it's Ward 4. We would like to offer a slight variation to what we've done in the past. We did discuss this briefly at our Special Public Works Committee this afternoon. In the past, we did the survey, sent out notices for those repairs that were required to meet ADA compliance, and give people an opportunity to opt out of the repair. There seemed to be a lot of confusion with the opt-out aspect of it, so this year we are proposing that we do the survey. It is a $6,000 cost for the survey. You have the agreement attached there. At that point, we would stop the formal agreement with Precision Concrete Cutting at the survey level. Give people a time frame for correcting the errors in their sidewalk. Because of our new procurement policy, we will have to go out and secure a contractor to make the repairs, whether it be Precision Concrete Cutting or somebody else, but we have to go through a procurement policy. So our suggestion is to do the survey, notify the property owners, and give them a date certain to finish the repairs. Any repairs not made by that date, the city will fix and send the bill as we've done in the past. But that takes out the confusion of, did I opt in, did I opt out? You know, where do we go with this? Who was I supposed to notify? They get their 60 days or 90 days, whatever the case might be, to make the repair. And if it's not done, we just fix it.
I was doing some rethinking of this after we discussed it, and I think it's a great idea, but how are we gonna know who to send the selected vendor out to? Or is he gonna have to resurvey as he goes around to see if they're done?
They'll have to go through, we'll have the list of issues that have to be addressed.
And they just verify they were
So
complete.
they have to verify they're either completed or they're not. It's part of the checklist. And we do have to go back regardless, so we do have some sidewalks that have to be resurveyed in other wards where people said they were going to do it. We gave them some extra time. That creates an ancillary problem to the sidewalk repairs, because if we give them extra time and more compassion, then they don't get done. And so this would really eliminate that. All of the repairs are done by the end of the summer of 19 for that ward. The city does have a significant number of sidewalk issues in the 4th Ward as well, largely because that's where we did the FEMA buyouts, and we have a lot of sidewalk there. So proportionally, we have a larger percentage of sidewalks in this ward than other wards as well.
Darn good shape. It's the best streets and sidewalks in town.
So that'll take in all of Riverwalk Park and Teachers Park, that whole.
There's also a lot of places that don't have sidewalks anyhow, right, that we just discussed on this other thing?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the Ward 4 sidewalk survey?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Scharf, second by Kurtz. Roll call.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is the Rydell site plan. A motion to approve or whatever the proposed site plan for the new Rydell Automotive Facility.
I'm thinking with our discussion on sidewalks that your second sentence should just be, put it in now.
It might be a good idea. That depends on who wants to do the motion and how you want to word it.
I'd make the motion to approve the right site plan with the stipulation they need to put the sidewalk in
Okay.
when they do.
I would second that.
Motion by Hill, second by Kurtz to approve the plan with them putting in the sidewalk at this point.
Do
do we get to see the site plan before we approve it? I don't have any attachments.
Is there not an attachment on this? I don't,
No, did not make it.
no. Do we have the site plan?
Yes.
Has it been, has anybody looked at it and approved it? So we don't have a copy of it?
Well, building inspector and Crawford Engineering have both approved it.
Sorry for being the rain cloud, I guess, but.
No.
Do you have anything that they can see, or did you guys bring anything?
You can plug your computer in the projector out.
Yeah, I have to pull it up here.
While you're on your way up here, Brian, is there a way to connect that sidewalk over to the Casey's intersection where our new crosswalk is for the trail? Or are they gonna have to walk across that entrance? Or is that a funny question?
The answer to your first question is yes, it can be done. Can it be done as part of this first set of improvements? No, but it can be done.
At a later date?
Yes, can be done at a later date. It has to do, that improvement would involve reconfiguring the signal down there at that intersection. So that's why it can't happen without the DOT's
Gotcha.
approval.
Will the DOT be involved in the reconfiguring of that signal when they do 150 south from when they come clear up to First Street in 2022 or 2023 or whenever it is?
That signal should not need to be modified because it already has enough lanes configured. The widening would happen north of that intersection, so it's already set up for that.
I was just trying to get them to join the fun.
Good plan.
Okay, there was a letter that we provided to Mr. Sherrids. He and I have reviewed the site plan. I can read you a couple of excerpts. I'll try and make this brief. We did complete a full review of the site development plan for the Rydell Auto Complex. And we worked with Rydell and their design team to coordinate their site improvements with the proposed extension of Enterprise Drive. And in general, those plans are in agreement with the future paving. There were 3 items that we commented on. They had requested to place some fill on Enterprise Drive right of way. And they didn't have, so we asked them to essentially needed to perform some grading within the city's right of way. We asked they provide an ADA compliant sidewalk. Also spoke with Tim about this regarding maintenance because it is a non-typical cross-section that they have requested on their side of the street. So we felt it would be prudent to have them go ahead and either show us how a ADA compliant sidewalk would work, which they have done, and I think the committee that looked at it, and when we met with representatives of Rydell, as is kind of illustrated in Al's recommendation for the motion, is that going ahead and installing it so that it's a finished product at this time, because it doesn't leave the city with a typical cross-section there. Let's deal with that now, with the installation of that sidewalk at this time.
So this has been, you and the building inspector have looked at these plans, and you said it went before committee and they saw the plans that Rydell is doing?
I've discussed the details of the plans with the building inspector. He and I have reviewed it, and then we met with the design team from Rydell. Al conducted that meeting, and Al, you have to help me out. Who else was that?
I think that was the extent of it. We had the engineers from Rydell.
But again, it's not something the council can see
Yes, it
before they
is.
approve it?
Absolutely.
We're trying to get this loaded, is that what we're doing? Okay.
How many hundreds of pages is it?
Wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
Because you can do the same thing with the next one with Casey's then, while we're at it, since that's next on the agenda. Is this where I get to turn around if you want to see what's going on? Thank you for asking, I appreciate it. It's kind of nice to know what you're saying yes to.
Yeah.
For this fortunate. I'm just thinking, come on, throw it.
I'll be here past my bedtime if we keep this up.
Yeah, Richard, why'd you ask?
What's on my agenda for tomorrow morning? How early I have to get up?
I'm gonna print them off because that's not the way we have it. So, I'll print it for you.
Are you gonna print Casey's also?
I still make the motions.
To approve? You want sight unseen?
Sight unseen.
Are you
I
printing
trust
off
Brian
Justin
and I
one, too?
trust.
'Cause
Yeah.
that's absent also.
Yes, I'm working on that one here right now.
We know where to find Al if it's not.
That'll work for starters.
What I'll do is
Make copies.
yes.
Talk amongst yourself. Is there anything on the priest thing that we need to have?
Had to see what you're voting on. I'm gonna get home till like midnight.
I think we have an attachment on that one, though.
I'd suggest that we have another
No, it's very prudent.
couple of topics after the site plan review, so let those print. That'll take just a minute because they are larger
Like say, can
files.
we go on down to Pre's?
The Pre's anti-dig task order, this is item D. It's a required process that we go through for the Pre's expansion to review their wastewater discharge before it gets to our wastewater treatment plant. The review of this is required by DNR. The task order has a price set in place for it. $14,000. That is passed on to Pre's as part of their
It's
process.
a one-time processing.
It's a one-time process. They have to know what are they allowed to discharge into our system. It looks at what is their process, what are they producing for waste, what do they have to do to take it from what it's coming off of their system before it gets into our system. It is required. I hate to say you don't have a choice, but if we're going to allow Pre's to discharge into our wastewater system, it's required.
So would they have to have like a holding area for it?
Generally, it's a pre-treatment process that they'll be required to do if it falls outside of the minimal allowance of what we can take. A lot of it has to do with the mineral, or the metals that they kick out, and they have to treat that. DNR regulates very tightly what we can take into the plant, and that's where the issue comes in. We've got enough processing here where we're kind of pushing that envelope, and we have to know, before we can develop the pre-treatment agreement for Pre's, what they're kicking out and how much they have to clean it up.
So if they take care of the pretreatment, and what if they exceed their volume? Is there a system in place for us to enhance the charges in order to meet that?
Right, and generally there's, I don't know what you call them, fines, penalties.
Sure.
Ways to encourage them not to.
Sure.
But DNR is clamping down on several things, including the metals that come in.
You bet.
And that is
They do.
a growing concern.
I'm not aware of any of these these penalties.
Yeah, certainly.
Nasty letters.
But because it's a task order, it's a change to what we're currently doing with Fox Engineering, it does require the council to approve that agreement.
I'd make a motion to approve Fox Engineering task order.
And
I'd second it.
Prees is paying for this study, aren't they?
Ultimately, yes.
So I have a motion by Kurtz. Who did I hear? O'Laughlin?
Mike, did you
Second
second?
it.
Thank you.
Did you get a second, Gina?
Yeah,
I think Mike.
O'Laughlin.
Did you second that, Mike?
O'Laughlin was
Yes, I
second.
second.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we need a roll call, please.
Well, okay.
Hannah,
What do we write out
The-
our task?
No, Task Force, Fox Engineering Task Order.
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Got enough time getting all that back? This is Rydell. Is this all Rydell?
Yes. The biggest issue with Rydell is the area between the north edge of their property line and the proposed Enterprise Drive street, and the elevation difference in there where the sidewalk would normally fit. And the challenge that we have is maintaining that grade at a level that can be maintained. The sidewalk, being a 5-foot sidewalk, requires a nominal slope at best. I think it's a 2% cross slope, is that correct? 2% max. So the elevation difference in there had to be addressed and adjusted to accommodate that area in there. And we were able to work through that issue with their engineers.
We were discussing, they had wanted for a retention, was that worked out into the?
Right, we did work into, we have a 60-foot easement for detention, if you will, a utility easement. They needed 30 feet of it, or we allowed 30 feet of it for them to use as retention. We maintained a 30-foot easement for utilities, which we felt was sufficient. And then they'll maintain that stormwater detention area on the west and south of their property where our easement travels. And they've maximized that, as well as, you know, there's a lot of impervious surface here. They're dealing with a lot of stormwater responsibility, and so they've used all of that, and I think it makes quite a difference for them.
Is it, I guess that was my big question. And Brian, have they covered the flow? Because when we talk about water going, it goes north of there.
Should have got a chair up front, right?
Yes, as Al said, the site plan does include provisions for that stormwater detention. So they're gonna capture the large majority of the water there and route that to that detention facility, and then it will be slowly released down the east right-of-way ditch of Highway 150. And then with the extension of Enterprise Drive, of course, we will be also intercepting any of the little bit of water from their driveway that they simply can't catch. We'll put that into our storm sewer system.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
They're funneling the lion's share of the east end of their property, actually to the south to pick up in that ditch. Now, like Brian said, they can't capture all of it, but the majority of it is going that direction. That is a natural waterway that runs on the east side of their property, so it's not a small task that they have. And part of the elevation issue is trying to keep the water out of their building, you know, as they funnel it through that property. And it's created an issue when they get that elevation put in there to keep the parking lot and the building up higher.
Because we did some work down there by Sia and Charlie's because of water going
Right.
north, and that'll be able to handle that extra flow, changes we made.
Yeah, it'll manage it better because they're gonna be detaining that water and slowly releasing it rather than just, uncontrolled.
Okay, so do you guys got enough information? You're ready for a roll call? We do have a motion and a second to approve this. Okay?
What are we doing, a roll call on? The
We have
Rydell
a
site plan.
motion to approve the site, including that they go ahead and do the sidewalk now rather than waiting
Okay.
for their plans for Rydell.
I'll just wait until they do it.
Well, these are two different things they're gonna be voting on. We don't have the other motion yet. Okay, so if everybody's ready, we'll at least take a roll call on the Rydell part of it, and then we'll deal with Casey's afterwards.
Shar,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes, but it would be nice to have a little more time to study those.
Needed more than 30 seconds, Mike?
Hill,
What's wrong with you?
Yes.
You need to trust in our building inspector and our engineer.
That's what I'm doing, I voted
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion did carry then.
Don't want trees.
So, we're down to Casey's General Store.
In the Casey site plan, this was a little bit easier. There was a couple of changes that had to be made in the location of their east driveways to accommodate the SIPCO power line, specifically their pole locations. The poles can be moved, bargain rate of $300,000 a pole, and we opted not to do that on either project. So we're working around the setbacks for the power poles that run through. It is a transmission line, it's not a standard power line, so there are other implications to simply moving the power. It's on the easement that is currently on the south edge of Casey's, that goes to the east back to the substation. Now, we do have an easement that runs through there that's also reflected in both site plans.
Does that need to be done prior to this?
No, this has to be done prior to closing on the property. There is a requirement in our purchase agreement that our permits and site plans and everything are approved. I know it's a minor detail. We are not acquiring the property. We have facilitated Casey's acquiring the property directly from Mr. Larson. They are, as you'll see in the plan, looking to use that for truck fueling as well as truck. So they're moving their diesel pumps from the south side to the east side and expanding that back in that area. So it's significant. The property they're acquiring is very significant. Right. It'll also be much better traffic flow. Proposed enterprise drive, so there's truck traffic will flow. And I think there's a significant amount of safety with that traffic. It's not the free-for-all intersection that we enjoy.
I had somebody ask me if moving the diesel aisle back where it's working. Well, that was
I don't see where that changes. I don't know if you've got the expertise, got the idea.
There you go.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. My name is Wally Jones. I think that there was like a couple of pages. If you look on there's a cover sheet, a demo sheet, look back, one that says site plan. New drive is, Enterprise Drive is going to be put in. Plans to keep the existing radio and accessing while under construction. We're very good at building our stores and keeping our existing stores open until we either demolish them or build a new one. We've done that in many locations. In this location, however, we're just adding an addition to the south end of the building and then relocating our fuel canopies for diesel towards the back. Also adding a cat scale, which is something that our truck drivers have always asked for. And so we will be providing that service in the back as well. Basically what you see is we're providing organized parking instead of the free-for-all that we currently have at this location.
Good term.
It will be striped, and it is our intent, Rivian is our tenant in our building. This was an acquisition store for Casey's, so we will make sure, whether through a gravel drive, a temporary gravel drive, that they will always maintain access to that location. So, because we understand that that's very important to their business. Besides that, a couple of the highlights, we are adding underground detention to this site. We will not have a detention basin, but it will be hidden underground, so you'll see either these yellow or black dog houses that are stacked. It's underground, filled with gravel. We've had very good success. Over, I think this will be our 300th location of underground detention with this new product, so it's not new anymore. We've done 300, so it's pretty proven and tested. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have regarding our project.
Are they gonna put showers in for the drivers?
I believe that is part, I'm just an engineer, so I don't put the metal in the inside of the building, on the outside. I believe that they're looking at adding that. Typically, when we're doing a truck plaza, that's what will happen, but I have not seen the architectural set on this one.
Will you still have the same number of truck parking spaces?
I believe we have more organized ones than, there are
I like
supposedly
that
some
term.
organized ones, but they also park on the south within that drive area when it gets overflowed. So we have more organized than we have now. If it gets full, obviously, we won't let them, typically the store managers are known in our diesel canopies, like if you're familiar with Just Diesel down in off of 380. When we acquired that site, we added about 10 acres of paving for truck parking, but again, do some organizational work with that one. And that seemed to help. People can see a stall's open, stall's not. It's not a create a spot kind of a parking lot. It's actually, you either have a stall or you don't.
From looking at the drawings, it appears there's a lot more truck parking.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
Yeah. 'Cause right now it is free for all.
What kind of time frames are we looking at for the construction?
I understood that we're supposed to close somewhere in May on the property, have all documents done. Then our construction crews come typically shortly behind us, anywhere from 5 days to 60 days, just depending on what weather,
Sure.
Weather's always a role for us, because we'll have one crew done, and then we're just moving on to the next work, so. But I anticipate once permits and everything are done, they're ready to roll on this one.
How long of a project is this? I mean, when do you plan on being finished, or?
This one's slated for about 6 months.
Okay.
From start to finish, and we don't, the advantage we have is when we pave, our Casey sites, we bring in gravel. That's something that we've convinced our client to do over numerous years. We'll put 6 inches of gravel down, because if anybody's working on a construction site, and if you worked in the mud, you don't work in the mud, right? So this thing will get covered with gravel, as soon as it's demolished. You'll see I think we have a call for 6 inches of rock underneath our paving. So then work on the rock, and when they can, they do segments of paving and finish it out, and keep things moving.
Okay. Any other questions from council members? Then I need a motion to approve the proposed site plan for the Casey South expansion project.
I'd make a motion to approve the Casey's site plan.
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Marv. Roll call, please.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes?
Hill,
Yes.
Shar.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Then we move on to frontline warning system contract.
This is the maintenance contract for 2019 for our outdoor weather warning sirens.
Side question, how old are those sirens and what kind of shape are they?
They are working.
Okay, that speaks volumes.
I don't have an age for you, so I won't even try and take a guess at that. They're obviously not new. We do go through a maintenance on them. This actually covers, if I understand right, 2 visits in 2019. They checked the batteries. We just replaced batteries in at least a couple of them within the last 2 years. So that's probably our biggest challenge. But we have not replaced them in recent history, so I don't have an age.
Could they, in their assessment, give us an estimated remaining life, or could they determine maybe when they were installed, or so we can get it into a 5-year plan or something if we're gonna, if we need to update?
Happy to ask.
Just a thought.
What's the fee for them doing this? What's the fee for them doing this?
I think it's $1,200, but I'm just looking for that in here, and it's not in there. There's agreement.
Fee's probably really reasonable, and then the repair parts and batteries, I think are very
We've used these, so it's the same one we've been using. This is not a new contract. One thing that we've been a lot more sensitive to is the conflict of interest. This would qualify as a contract. And this is the only thing I received, so I can't give you that specific amount. I think it was $1,200. That's for the 2019. We can table this.
Emergency management. Or who would be the expert, I guess.
Well, we'll check with Fire Chief here and see what he has to say. I would guess emergency management would be a logical place for
I would
that,
think
but
maybe they could point us in the right direction anyway, but I just, if we're getting to the point where we're gonna need to start thinking about replacing, let's take a look at the big picture and do it all at once and you
Make
know,
sure the
try.
placement's right and everything else,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because we're kind of going south heavy a little bit, you know, to where,
It's at a point now where we can still hear them pretty good in our addition there. We're as close south as,
Doesn't most people get the calls on their phones and stuff too?
I have it.
That's what most, that's the most common way to do it right now is you opt in for those emergency notifications through, the emergency management folks at the county.
but are we obligated to have an emergency system other than, do we make the phone system the only system that's used and do away with it?
There are parts of the country that's what they've done. They've eliminated their sirens and gone straight to an emergency notification. If the sirens are working, I wouldn't go down that road. If you have to make a decision on replacing sirens, you can start having that conversation, but I wouldn't do it as long as they're working.
One of the things, I heard a discussion about this, and one of the important things about the sirens is if you're outdoors, you'll hear them. And it's not necessarily designed for the people indoors, it's for the people that are outdoors. And like the phone thing is a thing for indoors more.
Yeah, if you're mowing your lawn, you wouldn't hear your phone. Right. But
Yeah, on your
you
cell
don't
phone,
hear
everybody
the
carries
siren.
their cell phones.
We've been able to hear it indoors out there.
Yeah,
The-
also, yeah.
To your point, John, it is important to note and to realize that these are outdoor warning sirens only. There is no obligation or expectation that people in their homes are going to hear them. Well, obviously, we can, but that is not the expectation, that's not the design for the sirens. So,
We still test these on a
During-
monthly basis, or?
during the
Yeah.
summer months, yes.
Thought I heard them go off. Okay, let's do a roll call.
Vaughn,
Table.
This is a roll call to table this.
This is a
until the next
motion, we have,
one.
yeah.
Yes.
Kurth,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Shar,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. We'll deal with this next time. Next on the agenda is the police station discussion. Is this something we need to go into closed
Madam Mayor?
session for or not?
Yes.
Prior to this discussion, we have a guest here who's waited quite a while. She didn't get signed in. Tracy, would you like to speak to the group today regarding Wild Thunder?
For regards to,
The Wild Thunder Wildlife Rehabilitation, she provides a great service for us around here.
oh,
And also
okay.
takes in cats and things like that for us. This is,
I'm gonna say I'm better with wild animals than I am with people, so excuse my nervousness.
If you want to bring the mic down to you and then just give us your name and address, we'll
My
be
name
fine
is Tracy
for our
Bell.
record.
I am the founder and owner of Wild Thunder Wildlife and Animal Rehabilitation.
Okay.
We work with the police department and DNR and federal wardens all over the state. We're a state licensed animal shelter as well as a state and federally licensed wildlife rehabilitation center.
Tracy's been a great asset to our community.
excellent.
And the whole surrounding area.
Thank you for your,
I have to leave here and go get a bunny out of me this window.
And you take in critters from all over Iowa, really?
I do, yeah.
Critters that nobody else would touch.
Yep.
Yeah, including a 7-foot eastern diamondback a few weeks ago. It's pretty,
wow.
pretty amazing.
That was a hot belly too.
But, I'm on call 24/7, you guys know they can call me, and I've even been known to jump in the river after a deer. So, whatever they need done, I'm more than happy to help.
Okay.
And we do this it's a nonprofit, we do it completely voluntarily and out of pocket. So I must thank you guys for the recent allotment that you guys, we did get from you guys, I appreciate it.
Very
We really appreciate the hard work you do. And some of us kind of thankless sometimes.
Yeah, definitely, but I appreciate it. So, I don't know what else, you would like to know. You're well aware.
I'm very well aware of it, yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you.
We're glad you were here tonight. Thank you. Now, what did we decide on the police station?
On the police station, this is a discussion that I wanted to bring back. We have our estimate from Mr. Levi for the renovation costs. He did work with a reputable contractor to put the numbers together, so it's not just an architect's guesstimate at those costs. It was obviously significantly higher than anybody anticipated, I think, up to this point, but the question comes in, this has been shared with the folks at Mercy. They're aware of it. They are reviewing it. The question was raised, do we make a counter offer to our letter of intent, which is what they would like us to do. And if you are going to engage in that conversation, I'd ask the city attorney to advise us on going into closed session. If not, we do owe them a decision one way or the other on our letter of intent. Part of the letter of intent did include our review of those renovation costs. So we're really at a decision point tonight to either make a counter proposal or move in a different direction. The closed session on here is only should you decide to have further conversation about the purchase discussion. The Mercy Board of Directors, like I said, is taking this under consideration at this point. They have not given us a response.
I wasn't here for the last discussion, but I would think we just need to move on, because in order to stay within what we said our budget would be, we'd have to go with the offer that we thought was ridiculously low. So I mean, I don't.
The only, and that's kind of my sentiment, except at this point, at the point that we started, nobody had this information, and now they do have this information. And I don't know, I'm not gonna tell you it makes a difference to them or not, but this is information needed.
I would really like it to wait for we looked at a 40,000 square foot site plan design that was done by amateurs, but even at $200 a square foot, you're looking at, what, $800,000 to $900,000 for a brand new building versus investing that much into an old existing building. And I really think we need to think about this before we do any discussion of counter offers back to Mercy. That's my opinion.
I agree.
This is on the agenda for
I
discussion.
don't mean to challenge your math, but in my head, 40,000 square feet at $200 a square foot is 8 million.
Yeah.
My math is bad.
Way bad.
So,
or you gave me bad numbers.
Was you talking about a warehouse, John? That's a lot of square foot.
I think it was supposed to be 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
So
sorry about that.
And the issue here is not to your point, John, it's not to force you into a decision. It's at a point where, you know, it doesn't do us any good to drag our feet. I recommend that we take some action. If we want to table it till the next meeting, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no crisis here, but I don't think we should let it lay indefinitely. So we have some things
One
in
more
front of
point.
us.
The longer it sits on the market, the more aggressive they might become wanting to sell it. So I think jumping in with both feet right out of the chute is kind of silly. We got time on our hands.
They had to heat it all winter. You know, that was an expense for them.
Well, we've kind of hinted what they
Property
need
taxes.
to sell it to us for to stay within our budget, so.
Yeah.
How about, can we put this on the
Committee of the whole?
committee of the whole and have a discussion there?
You won't be able to go into closed session then.
You can discuss what you want to do for a police station. You are not going to have a negotiation discussion as to how much you offer, because you can't close that. And you've really eliminated the advantage you have for negotiation. You're gonna do that in a public session either way. So I'll let the city attorney weigh in, but my advice to you would be not to discuss price at a committee of the whole. If you're going to have a price discussion, either have it here on TV or do it in closed session. But it's either in the open or it's not.
Well, could we, I think Deb had a good start. Could you and the city attorney and the police chief talk with our current landlord to see, get a real firm option on what we might be looking at?
If that's the direction the council wants to provide, we'd be happy to do that. You know, at this point, we haven't gone down that road because that hasn't been our direction. But
I would personally be against that because I think it leaves us susceptible over the long term. We can discuss it, I guess.
That's a conversation that can happen. And again, it's not that we're opposed to it by any means. It's just a matter of, you know, as a council,
Cost-wise, it's more feasible.
I realized that the police station committee, their recommendation was for a new police station. But in light of a lot of things that have developed, you know, it doesn't sound like it's too bad of an option.
It does have its issues that we have not discussed.
But he did say he would do some things, and I think maybe with the chief and discussing some specific needs to find out if that's even an option that they can provide.
I think it's worthwhile to investigate.
Well, how about at the committee of the whole, we have a discussion about what direction we're gonna go? I'm hearing.
Depends on what the price is.
I'm hearing 2 or 3 different directions as we speak.
I think it's, I think there's enough discussion that we probably should have. We're just not going to discuss purchase offers.
I agree with Al.
My only problem with waiting to a committee of the whole, if we don't know what other option is available, then we're gonna, what if? I think we need some hard data to put in there. We already know what this hard data is, but I think we need to know some other option information too. That's my feeling. Otherwise, we're gonna be whistling and putting it off again.
Can we talk about even rental stuff at meeting of the whole, or does that need to be in closed session? Needs and.
Well, we can discuss the options for ownership versus leasing. Lease rates are a little bit different unless we're in a full negotiation. But I guess the only thing I'd ask is if that's something you would like, I'd like to have the council make that motion and vote on it so that we have that understanding, even if it's not unanimous, that's fine, but I think it's prudent for us to just get the council's direction on that.
To have the discussion or to have them present something to us?
I'm going back to the concept of if the chief and the city attorney and I are going to meet with the landlords to discuss a firm proposal for what that would look like long-term or longer term. I mean, if we're gonna go down that road, that's fine, but I think that's similar to us looking for a location, and we should have council direction on that.
Or do we just invite him in here and we talk to him about it?
And
at a council meeting or committee of the whole?
That's your call. You have the right to have those conversations. I'd recommend the committee of the whole versus a council
I'd make
meeting.
a motion to have Brian Eddy or whoever from out there come and talk to us about negotiation, what it would take for us to stay there.
I think let them know, the chief, the captain, the assistant chief, what do we need?
Have them all here.
Can he provide
He says
it?
the information already.
Yep.
But come talk to us would be great.
Have them all here, be able to ask him questions.
I think a presentation would be good. I don't think you can negotiate as a council
No.
I
effectively.
don't think we can negotiate it, but we tell them what we are looking for. I don't know.
Where we're at now, what he could add specifically, like chief and.
Right, I'm just,
talking
it was
about.
noted
Yeah,
that we
no.
could negotiate.
Yeah, no money.
As a group, and I just
Yeah.
noted
We tell
that
'em
you
what
can
we
ask them all the questions, gather all the information, but the negotiation in terms of bottom line,
Yeah.
top line, has to be behind closed doors or you're showing all your cards.
Well, by expressing what we are looking for, he could come back to us with what he could offer it to.
Because we kind of know what we want, and then how close can he come to what we want?
You have a motion on the floor, and I think that would be prudent.
Second.
And then your motion was what again, Deb?
To have Brian and Eddie come to talk to the council about staying in the current station at the committee of the whole meeting.
We do have a
As
second.
opposed to Mr. Eddie, can we say our current landlord?
Yeah.
Because he might have somebody else here.
Okay. Do you need a roll call on that or just a majority?
I think you're okay with the roll call.
Okay. Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
No.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, we're down to reports. I see a new department head that doesn't usually come. How about a report from the street department?
Didn't want to miss out on a 3-hour meeting.
Come forward if you're going to talk, you gotta come forward
We
again.
haven't had any of these since you haven't been coming.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one, what was our shortest time? It was less than 45, was it 25 minutes? No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't remember what that was, not
Tim,
too
please
long
speak into
ago.
the microphone.
It's not plugged in.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Okay.
It hasn't been all night?
No. About halfway through it went bad on me back there.
Okay,
Just talk really loud.
yeah, 'cause I'm deaf.
The only thing I have to say is, with Mr. Hawkins' party and the 4th of July and stuff, I wish you'd set $3,000, $3,500 aside so we can buy some new fencing. And in the last 4 or 5 years, they want a gate, they cut a hole. They want a gate, they cut a hole. Then we just keep patching, we have a lot
In the
of-
fence, they cut a hole in the fence?
Yeah, they'll cut the fence all the way through to make an opening and stuff. And now we just keep putting last and last, and we haven't replaced any for years. Somebody, the 4th of July committee or who wants to buy it, somebody needs, we need to buy some new fence. And it's about $100 a hole.
That request has been presented to the celebration committee.
How many rolls do you need?
It's gonna take probably 30 rolls. At least.
They're how much per roll?
100 foot,
How much you say a roll was?
$100.
Would it all have to be placed in one shot?
It'd be nice because most of the old stuff is getting bad. There are a few good rolls that we keep for spare, but the new stuff would be a lot heavier, and better built material.
Doesn't it start to degrade after a while with
Yeah.
UV and everything?
I just think if we could do half this year and half next year.
Watch who cuts it and charge him for it.
Pardon me?
Watch who cuts it and charge him for it.
It'd be nice if we could, but we're gonna get the pay.
The event person.
We have to have a deposit.
It's usually the 4th of July committee. Or the barbecue. If that, all the committees down there that use it. And then also, Bob was talking about the hole down on 7th Avenue Southeast. That's actually a stormwater problem. We got a blocked stormwater, we have one down by Deb and 6th.
I had somebody ask, are we fixing that street along with First Street? Unless they made a big change last week, I don't think so.
So where's this one you were asking about? What
Huh?
street?
Down by Joseph,
Oh, okay.
And I believe the last time 5th Avenue Southwest was still back in the early 80s. Back when we still had our own equipment, we did it
It was
last.
prior to 1986, because that's the year I moved into the end of 5th Avenue and 7th Street.
Before 86. I'd say it's probably in the early 80s. Other than that, we're just keeping ourselves busy, doing fixing water leaks from last winter and doing street projects. They tell me they're gonna start one on Main Street pretty soon, so we are out.
We don't have a Main Street in Independence.
Yes, we do, Don.
Where's it at? Where's the sign at?
Otterville.
Not in Independence. Todd, do you have anything?
All right, a lot of tired eyes, so I'll make it quick. I just want to do like an update. I know Lau was really good at doing that. So, with building and code, a lot of this will be mixed together. So pricing, my press releases that I've had lately, and then I also want to do a big one is swimming pool. Less than 48 inches, so we have to have a fence around it, between 24 and 48. And I want to make sure, you know, safety is my biggest issue here. So, that's going to be something in a column. Nuisance properties. There's quite a few, and I'll touch on yours first. So, 703 6th Avenue Northeast. That's kind of what I'm basing. It's called an abatement letter that I'm working with the city attorneys. And it's basically like I'm calling it like a bulletproof letter. So if they meet all this criteria, then I'm trying to make this so there's no loopholes. Like if they see some issue and they're like, well, okay, well you didn't address this, I want to make sure that I follow every part of that. So I'm working with city attorney, and then I got a couple working, so it's nice. I mean, I'm bouncing stuff back and forth, multiple drafts, and I actually have a draft if one of you guys would like to see it.
That'd be great.
I've also, I don't know if you've seen Malik Theater, ended up getting principal for that one. They're doing a lot of cleanup right now. Right around 500 chairs were taken out of there, and probably 4 or 5 30-yard dumpsters. So they're working on it, trying to clean it up. So I do another inspection. I'm doing monthly inspections. The next one's either tomorrow or Wednesday. So keeping on track with them.
What about mold in that place? Isn't it full of mold?
Say that it's mold, like, even though it's something that might look like it, but as long as we get the big debris out of there right away, like from where it was a couple months ago, it's quite a bit. We've had some issues with odor complaints over on a different ward, and I actually sat down with environmental management team at Tyson, and within the next council meeting, I'll have paperwork of what they're doing and a timeline of how they're gonna mitigate this. What they plan on doing is adding like enzymes to the sludge room. So with certain parts per million, they're able to like dilute that smell. I mean, it's not gonna be, you know, Cinnabons, but it's going to be better than what it was before. So with that, they're also doing, that'll mitigate some of it, and I'm also asking for them to do a dual, like, inline filter that goes through the roof. It's a carbon filter. It already passes through 2 50-gallon carbon filters, and they used to be replaced, I think, every 5 years. I had them move it to annually, so they're doing those annually, and then 2 inline filters. And that should help out quite a bit. And also, they have an exterior pump station, and if you go out there, there's flies all over, so they're gonna put like a magnetic cover on there to mitigate some of that stuff. I've also been working with the DNR, so there's a thing called a community rating system. I've been working with Jason Kahn and Bill Capuccio from DNR. And the reason I kind of did this is because the RV park, I've heard about the extension, we'd like to do that, but not knowing if we bring Bill in there or what. So I sat down with Jason for about 3 hours, walked through the whole thing, and he showed me exactly how we can create an RV park extension. That would be the high school park. Instead of studying, so we'd be able to add dirt and fill into basically right behind water. Where the portion our guys are right now. You can see there, out until we get to the flood. We get surveyed. gonna see what was permitted, what wasn't, how to remediate what was going on there. And ultimately what it'll do is everybody with a workers policy, there's 103 policy holders in Independence and almost $91,000. By helping out that many people at once, it's kind of a, being able to help them.
Todd, to clarify that, it would lower their insurance or?
Lower their premiums,
Okay.
yep, yep, every one at once. So by doing this, you're helping the community as a whole.
Okay.
I was hoping to get outside of the corporate limits like golf course and that, but it's only within the city limits, so. So with that, with the RV park, we have to add fill. So I'm thinking with Skogman digging those basements for the 14 houses, take that dirt, take it directly there. Saves them money, time, saves us money, time. As long as it's suitable fill, why not?
If you did those 40 units, you'd have to put another shower house in, right?
Well, okay, with that, we want to use those press lines. So that would be kind of your safe house, shower house. And then what my vision is, I'd love to see where the RV park is now, the new section, and then the old, what they use for soccer now, I believe. But, I mean, ideally, that'd be just a huge resort area, so. That's my goal. And then also, I've been working with, talked to a couple local contractors, and I talked to Trish from high school, and I'd like to start like a job shadowing program, building trades, kids working with the Gissels and the Independence Plumbing and Heating, you know, legitimate contractors that follow the rules. I think that'd be great. Get the kids out there working.
Keep more of them in town, too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then also nuisance properties, I'm gonna give you each what I have, and these are just kind of the ones that pop out. These are dilapidated, these are buildings that I've already had one porch taken out on the southwest part of town. But it was actually collapsing on itself, so. Talked to the guy on Tuesday, by Friday, it was completely done. So I wish everyone would do that, but I can't. So. But I have 28 other nuisance properties on here, so if you have any more, call me, because I can't see everything. So.
I already had somebody contact me about observing people blowing grass in the street.
Okay.
Do you still want them to call the police department and report it, and they just pass it on to you,
No,
or?
just call me. I want everyone to call my number,
Okay.
and then give them my cell phone number, because I'm in the office. I usually get there around 6:30, and I like to hammer out paperwork between like 6:30 and 8, and then I'm in the field the rest of the day. So you call my work line, and I'm probably not there. So.
Okay, and your cell is on the city website, right?
Yep, yep. And next time we'll post it. Or
You know, grass trimmings are pretty bare minimal compared to leaves. I think we need a leaf ordinance. I know nobody'd like it, but when you're talking about all these storm sewers being full, that's one of the number one things that are in them is leaves. Them little grass trimmings are gonna send it a whole lot faster than these leaves.
Well, technically, I think the ordinance does say you're not supposed to
Yeah,
rake
you
any
can't even
debris
put-
into the
Right.
street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Leaves
You don't
can-
rake it, but if you don't rake your yard, where are they gonna blow?
It's the same with the snow. I mean, it's yours. It's on your property, it's yours. So.
Can we still hire any summer help to clean out the storm drains?
Storm drain cleaning is not the highest priority. Tim does have one seasonal employee, but they're covering a lot of ground, and storm sewer cleaning, I don't think is.
Made a heck of a difference for years.
We don't have the bag like we used to. We have to work with the line shop to use their bag and stuff. We check them and.
Shoveling buckets.
That's the way I did it.
That's the way I did
Used
it.
to have a vac, Timmy.
What's that?
You used to have a vac.
5-gallon bucket and a rope, and
Yep.
you hope it didn't slop over the side when they pulled it out.
Seasonal?
We
Todd,
won't fit through the manhole.
Yeah, see,
Not
therein
to,
therein lies the problem.
When you toured with Mr. Hill,
Yes.
had he come across this situation before?
It's never been taken as far as where I went with Don right away. So I kind of tried to go the first time I met with just the local guy there, and I don't think he thought I was gonna just keep on nudging, and then finally he's like, okay, he's not gonna back down, so I went straight to Don, and then Don's boss, and so that's who I met the other day, so. The main crew from California and Arkansas, and they had 5 of them, and then me, so that's why you guys are gonna have, I mean, they said by next council meeting, you'll have on paper exactly what they're doing, but with that, they're not gonna guarantee, I mean, you can't totally mitigate a smell. That's like totally soundproofing a room, you know, it's gonna be there. Quaker Oats, I mean, stuff like that.
Right.
They definitely want to make it so it's not repulsive, but I can't say without a doubt that it's gonna be 100% complete, and I think that's if we keep on putting all this money, go through all these stages, and it still is an issue for this one or these people, where can we draw the line at? So, you know, we can't just keep on pouring in money until it quits smelling. So, I don't know how we're gonna do that. You know, you can test for audibles and decibels, so I don't know how you test for, you know, your olfactory, so.
Well, I just want to thank you for all your efforts. I know you've been working on this, and this gentleman flew, California, Arizona, where it was?
Yeah, California and the Arkansas guy.
Yeah, we're talking a ways away. We're back into the Tyson issue. But like I said, I just want to thank you for all your efforts, because if you wanted to keep nudging, I know what would have happened, and you just would have put it back on the shelf, and it wouldn't. So I do want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I like to just take care of an issue right away, because then it gets left to the wayside. So if you got something for me, let me know right away. I like to answer everybody's calls, but I also like to prioritize, you know, these dangerous buildings where the roofs are caving in. I'm gonna take care of that one before I tell this guy to pick up his garbage bag in his front yard, you know? So I'm looking at life safety issues and working backwards, so. But anything at all, just call my cell phone, leave a message, and I'll record it, I'll write it down, so. That 28's just a start. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Todd.
Keep up the good work.
Hey, thank you.
Dustin, do you have anything?
Want me to keep you here till 10 o'clock?
No. We'll make a citizen's arrest.
Even the newspaper wants to call.
I'm still on the clock. Bob, you made a comment about talking to local government. Chuck Grassley will be in town tomorrow at the library. So if you want to speak to him, between 1 and 2, and then Joni Urs will be at Heartland Acres on Wednesday. So those two will be in town here the next 2 days.
They're never here at a time when working people can go visit.
I understand that.
They can't deal with state stuff.
They're still here. So anyhow, other than that, our officer trading cards are in. They paint them, and they're out and about. So they see them around. Yep, the newspaper.
Do I get to
and stuff.
keep these?
Yep. Newspapers and stuff, and give them to them so that we can put articles and stuff in and get more protection for kids and stuff in the community, so.
I hope you don't try to trade your trading card for a Mickey Mantle rookie card with some 3-year-old.
I don't know, I put my signature on it, but it worked fine. So. All right, that's all I had.
Thanks, Dustin.
Okay, who wants to start? Council members. Deb, would you like to, do you have
Sure.
anything?
The airport with Jim Connell was a great turnout and a good event. Had a lot of pilots out there, and it was pretty impressive, all that stuff out there. Congratulations, Gina, on your award you got.
Thank you.
And I was asked today about the downtown parking signs that say parking lots, and they only really address the parking lot, like down by the Legion. They don't address the other city parking lot, like behind Hardware Hanks and stuff.
There is a sign, directs you that way for city parking lot on 150.
I don't know where, the arrows all go toward the other parking lot.
No, there's one on, I think it's 2nd Street and 150 or 5th, whatever, and it shows you park going that way for the parking lot.
When you come to the VFW, either way, you're coming, it tells you just to go to that one parking lot.
on the north side of First Street, but on the south side that shows you the one on
There's
the other
not a one
side.
that tells you to go behind the hardware store. And people, the businesses down there, I was downtown, they asked if we could put an arrow that says downtown parking lot both ways.
Towards,
There's only
to
one way.
Hardware Hank
Yeah,
parking,
that's a city parking lot behind Hardware Hanks,
okay?
and there's no arrow. Pretty legit thing, if people come from out of town, and I think we've seen more out-of-town cars that they don't know where to go, and anyway, I was asked that by the business people today, so. And then I was wondering that, at the lights at Bill's that flash both red, can those be yellow? You can only turn, nowhere else to go, no matter what direction you're coming in.
Or turned off.
We can look at it, technically, that you can go straight across there if you're traveling north.
To go to the mill.
Now, people are not, I understand, but we'll look into that.
Well, when you come to Mill, you're not coming straight across, because that's a turn. So you gotta be turning a blinker if you're gonna go there, but if you're coming either way, if you're coming from Bill's and you wanna go, you gotta turn left, you're coming the other way, you gotta turn right. You can't go on the bridge, there's nothing but a turn there.
No, but you can go and turn into the mill if you're going.
So you come and you turn your blinker on. You're not at the stop sign.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be coming out of the mill.
So the
One way.
biggest challenge that you have are people, if they're not stopping and slowing down, coming around that corner, you run into folks coming out of Bill's or turning into Bill's.
That's
and
what I was saying, flashing yellow.
You're already not stopping.
I see the opposite, they're stopping at that red light, and sitting there for 3 minutes before they go. And in the morning, when you're at school time, and in the afternoon, it's congested. If it was yellow, I think the traffic would move a little bit.
People don't know what a flashing yellow light means.
The,
Stop.
Go fast.
I don't know, I've just been asked that by a lot of people, and so I said I would break it up.
I'll ask what their issues are, but.
Who's controlling those?
Well, we've been working with the engineer on the project for all the traffic control,
Okay.
all the way through there. We've had conversations about Third, going south there on Third Avenue and Second Street Southeast. We've adjusted the timing there to improve the traffic flow. Again, it's just kind of seeing what we can do to make it work as
That seems to
efficiently
be
as
working
possible.
better, but for some reason, Sunday, I think it was, they were on four-way flash.
I saw that
What
when
happened?
Yeah,
That was a disaster.
that was a mess, and I saw that when I got back into town from my kids, and I don't know why that was a four-way flash.
See, that's
Unless
what, that's what it does on the 4th of July. And that's a, they say it's a disaster at that intersection on 4th of July.
I don't know if it was that way all day, or if it was just in the evening. Third Avenue. Right down by the old Casey's here.
Well, at one point in time, it was red one way, yellow another way, then it was all four flashing red, and then it went back to working normally, and all started questioning me about it.
In the same night, or I mean, same day it was doing that?
He asked me today about it, and I didn't know nothing about it until he said something.
I went through a little before noon, and it was flashing,
Okay,
so I don't know.
it is 8:30 in the evening when I went through. We'll look at it.
Thanks.
Anything else? Mike?
All good.
Carl?
Nothing?
Bob?
Nothing?
Mike?
I got nothing.
Got nothing.
I'll echo Deb's comments about the airport. Thanks for everybody that came out for that. We had people from as far away as California, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I can't remember, Arizona. It was amazing.
Was there a lot that flew in? Because I didn't think the weather was
There
good for
were
flying that day,
4 or
didn't
5
seem like.
planes, I think,
Okay.
total. But a lot of people came here to spend the weekend, so they didn't fly.
I took
a
that
good-
pilot's picture, and there's probably 40 pilots worth there, at least.
Oh, at least. The other thing I want to bring up, spring and the dog park is starting to get busy. And if we could just remind all the pet owners that bring their animals out to the dog park to please pick up the poop that they leave
Get a permit.
and get their permit. It's only $25 a year and you use it all year long. That's it.
Thank you. Danny? Dana?
Speaking of the airport, we do have another event at the airport on May 4th. There is a, what do you call it, a Young Eagles fly-in. There's a breakfast that'll be served, and they'll have rides for the kids from, I think it's running from 7 to noon or 8 to noon. So go out and support the airport. There'll be more activity out there May 4th.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's anybody out there in TV land still awake, but you guys are barely. I have, there's an open house on Thursday this week, April 25th, from 2 to 6 p.m. at the Senior Center, an open house to raise mental health awareness and provide additional support services here in Independence. So it says, please join Plugged In Iowa is the name of the group for our peer recovery zone for people with mental illness. Also, I'm still looking for somebody to be on the Tourism Bureau's organization representing Independence, if there's somebody willing to do that out there. If not, I guess I will be doing that. One thing I wanted to share with council is the Independence Light and Power Telecommunication developed a board policy manual, which is awesome because it spells out what the responsibilities when somebody is appointed to that position, what their rights, their responsibilities and duties, what's expected of them, that type of thing. It's they did a good job on this, signed off by all the members, and that even has a place where they do self-evaluations as to how they're doing on this, on the policy and stuff. I have a copy here. I didn't make copies for everybody because that's up to Independence Light and Power whether they want to share it with all, but it's a great project that they took on. They're all pleased with it. I stopped there last Thursday for their meeting, and they're doing very well, and they addressed this at that time too and made sure everybody had it signed. Trying to think if there was anything else that I had. There is 2 positions that are expiring July 1st for the library board. One of them is Melinda Eckelbrick. Her term is up, but she has requested about being reappointed. I think this will maybe make her 3rd appointment. So if there's anybody out there that in TV land that was interested in getting on the library board, they need to let me know right away. And then also Ben Lang's term is up, but he is a non-resident, so actually he's appointed by the Board of Supervisors, but still you guys approve it once the Board of Supervisors appoint somebody. So I'll be talking to them and seeing, because I'm not sure, I haven't heard anything whether Ben actually still wants to stay on the board, but that's somebody that's in the county. So if you know of anybody that's not in Independence that's interested in being on the library board, let me know about that too so we can pass that on. I think that's all I have, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by Vaughn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Motion carried. This is one of the longest meetings, I think.